Welcome to Wife Cheating Story. I hope you have an enjoyable and relaxing time listening. Let's get started.
I saw the message flash across Alexis's phone screen. Missing you, can't wait until next time, babe. Colin. My blood went ice cold. Colin, the name she mentioned in passing, the generous donor from her charity work, the cologne that wasn't mine, the late nights, the whispered calls. It was also painfully clear now. I forced myself to breathe. A Marine never jumps without a plan. But the weight of betrayal burned hotter than any battlefield I'd ever faced. That night, as she slid into bed, still reeking of him, I stared at the ceiling, my mind already crafting my next move. She thought I didn't know. She was wrong, and I wasn't going to let it slide. Dear listeners, before we dive into today's story, let us know your location in the comments section, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Now, let's begin the story. I've always been an early riser. Blame the Marine Corps. Blame a demanding father who barked orders long before I ever stepped foot on a military base. Either way, my body just wakes itself up around dawn every day. No alarm needed. And since I left active duty to focus on building custom motorcycles, that habit stayed with me. It's a strange sort of comfort, honestly. The ritual of unlocking my garage, flipping the main breaker to feed power to my workbenches and tool stations, then standing in the hush of those few seconds before the fluorescent lights blink to life. That's how I start my day. No coffee, no breakfast, no conversation. Just me, the squeak of the metal door, and the promise of a new creation waiting to come to life under my hands. I've got a small workshop behind our house in this suburban corner of Georgia. It's not some fancy shop on a bustling avenue. It's basically a large converted barn with insulation, decent wiring, and enough space to store about 4 or 5 bikes, plus their parts. Organized chaos. That's how I describe my workshop. To outsiders, it might look like a few too many metal racks jammed with engine components, but I know exactly where everything goes. Labels, mental system, muscle memory. There's a certain discipline in working alone with a machine, running your fingertips over the steel, listening for that perfect hum of an engine. I guess you could say it keeps me grounded, especially after the unpredictability of active duty. I remember that morning so clearly. I was in my usual spot, right by the front bench, fiddling with the throttle assembly on a 1970 Triumph Bonneville I'd been restoring for a local collector. The job was almost done. A couple more hours maybe before I'd tune it up and deliver it. In the glow of the overhead lamp, I caught a glimpse of a photograph pinned near my toolbox. It was a family photo, me, my wife Alexis, and our 16-year-old daughter Mackenzie, taken on vacation last summer at a lakeside cabin. We looked so normal, happy. My arm draped around Alexis's shoulders, Mackenzie in the middle, hugging us both. I frowned. Things had been off for weeks, maybe months. I shook the thought away, focusing on the metal under my hands. But the weight in my chest wouldn't budge. I was tightening a bolt when I heard footsteps behind me. Nobody sneaks up on me. Usually I'm too wired, too used to being alert. But the shuffling was so soft, it almost blended with the hum of the fluorescent tubes overhead. I turned and saw Mackenzie standing there, backpack slung over one shoulder, hair half in her face. "Morning, kiddo," I greeted softly. "You're up early?" She shrugged. "Got a chemistry test to study for?" Figured I'd do it before breakfast. I set down my wrench. My little girl. Sometimes I forget she's a teen now, with a mind of her own and more stress from school than I ever had at her age. We have a good relationship, me and her. Always have. Maybe because Alexis was so busy with her event planning gigs that I ended up being the constant presence. "Everything good?" I asked. Mackenzie stepped closer, glancing at my bench. "Yeah, I guess. It's just—" She bit her lip. Mom came home really late again last night. Did you notice? I paused. Of course I'd noticed. My wife had slid into bed around 2 in the morning, reeking of fancy perfume and an even fancier cologne that definitely wasn't mine. She said she had some charity function, I replied, not meeting Mackenzie's gaze. Mackenzie exhaled. Dad, she's acting weird, and you know it. I tried to keep my voice calm. Maybe she's under a lot of pressure at work. Big fundraisers, big donors. I'm sure there's plenty of stress. Mackenzie just studied me. She's bright, and she can read people like a well-worn book. Okay, she said quietly. I just wanted to see if you were worried. I forced a half smile. Don't stress about it, kiddo. Focus on that test. I'll talk to Mom later. She nodded, but I could tell she wasn't satisfied. She gave me a little hug and trudged back to the house, leaving me alone with my swirling thoughts. Because the truth was I was worried. Alexis had been gone more often than not these past couple months, claiming she had late-night sponsor meetings or impromptu soirees for charity donors. She's always been the social butterfly, but this was different. She'd come home smelling like someone else's aftershave. She'd brush me off if I asked. She'd go days without having a real conversation with me or Mackenzie. I set my jaw and returned to the triumph, but my focus was shot. I kept glancing at that family photo. I was definitely unsettled, but I told myself to hold it together. A Marine never jumps without a plan. After Mackenzie left for school, I locked up the workshop and went inside to clean up. The house was oddly silent. Usually, Alexis would have the morning news on or be fussing with her phone, but I didn't hear a peep. Alexis? I called. You up? No answer. I wandered into the kitchen. A half-eaten bagel lay on the counter, plus a used coffee mug in the sink. I noticed Alexis's phone, left charging near the toaster, a rare sight since she practically glued that thing to her hand 24/7. Just as I was about to head upstairs to check on her, the phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen out of reflex. Sometimes she gets event planning notifications or reminders. The message preview read, "Missing you? Can't wait until next time, babe. Colin." I swear it felt like the air got sucked from my lungs. My mind reeled. I knew that name. Alexis had mentioned him once or twice in passing, a big donor, some real estate developer with money to burn. I'd heard rumors he was the type to show up at local bars with different women on his arm each weekend. Babe, missing you. Next time. I forced myself to breathe, turning my head toward the stairs, expecting Alexis to come rushing down any second. She didn't. I stared at the phone, warring with the desire to dig deeper, check all her messages, yank the bandage off in one savage motion. But I didn't. Because if there was one thing the Marines had drilled into me, it was self-control. Instead, I walked away from the phone, my hands balled into fists at my sides. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe it was a friend messing around. But deep down, I knew. I headed upstairs, trying to keep my heart from pounding too loud. Our bedroom door was half open. I leaned in. Alexis was in the shower, steam rolling out into the hallway. I could hear the water beating against the tile. Part of me wanted to barge in and demand answers. Another part, the calmer, more calculating side, told me to wait. I slipped back downstairs, heart hammering. Her phone buzzed again. I forced myself not to look. Instead, I made coffee, ignoring my trembling hands. When Alexis finally came down, hair damp, wearing that plush robe I'd bought her last Christmas, she noticed her phone on the counter and paused. "Morning," I said, forcing my voice steady. She gave me a tight little smile. "Morning. You didn't see my phone, did you?" I shrugged. "I heard it buzz a couple times, but I didn't read anything." Her expression flickered relief or something else. "Oh, it's probably just Autumn or someone from the planning committee." She typed in her passcode quickly, glancing at the screen, then shutting it off again. I studied her face. She was definitely guarded. She didn't meet my eyes. "How was your event last night?" I asked, keeping my tone casual. She cleared her throat. "Fine. Exhausting. You know how these donors are." "Must have run late." "Yes," she said shortly, leaving no room for further questions. She turned away, rummaging in a cabinet. "I'm heading out in half an hour. Another meeting with the Children's Hospital Board." I just nodded, sipping my coffee. My mind was already swirling. "Children's Hospital Board, sure. Or maybe you're meeting Mr. Collin." My jaw clenched. The rational side of me told me to gather facts. Don't confront yet. Don't blow up. So I kept my mouth shut and let her vanish out the door in a whirl of perfume and tension. That evening, Alexis didn't come home until nearly 1 in the morning. I lay awake in bed, listening to her fumbling quietly in the dark living room, probably trying not to wake me or Mackenzie. She eased into bed a few minutes later, the scent of cologne even stronger this time. I could feel the bed shift under her weight, hear her soft exhale. A part of me wanted to turn over, look her in the eye, demand an explanation. Another part of me felt numb, like I was floating outside my own body, watching some twisted scene unfold. I didn't move. I pretended to sleep. Her breathing eventually evened out, and I stared at the ceiling, my heart hammering. That was the night I decided. I need to know for sure. I need proof. And if she's doing what I suspect, well, I've handled much worse threats in my life. I'd handle this one, too, methodically and without mercy. Early the next morning, I was back in my workshop, but I wasn't tinkering with a motorcycle. I was modifying a little piece of tech, a GPS tracker, something an old buddy from my unit had once shown me. Attaches magnetically under a car, syncs with an app on your phone. You can see exactly where that car goes in real time. I'd never spied on anyone in my life, least of all my wife. But if I was going to confirm my suspicions, I needed to be sure. Confrontation without evidence could lead to her lying or gaslighting me, telling me I was paranoid. I was so absorbed in calibrating the tracker that I didn't hear my phone ring until it stopped. Then it buzzed with a voicemail. I wiped my greasy fingers, picked it up, and saw the missed call was from Lance, my best friend and loyal client. Lance wasn't just a friend, he was a confidant. He'd served in the Marines, too, albeit in a different platoon. We'd crossed paths a few times, ended up settling in the same area after discharge. He ran a small automotive repair shop across town, and we traded tips often. I checked the voicemail. "Hey, man," Lance's voice said, sounding casual. "Just a heads up, I was at the Cedar Hotel Lounge last night, dropping off some parts to a buddy of mine, and I saw Alexis there. She was with some guy in a suit, seemed real cozy. Could be business, but thought you should know." I closed my eyes, swallowing hard. The Cedar Hotel Lounge. That lined up exactly with her work event times. No coincidence. I called him back. "Lance, thanks for telling me." He hesitated. "Look, Jeffrey, I don't want to cause trouble. Maybe it's nothing." "Yeah," I said quietly. "Maybe. But I appreciate it. Let's catch up soon." When I hung up, my suspicion grew from a simmer to a boil. She was out, flaunting him in public, or at least not hiding well enough to avoid being spotted. That's how affairs often go, right? They start secret, then the arrogance builds until they get sloppy. Well, I wasn't about to let them walk all over me. I secured the GPS device, determined to attach it to Alexis's SUV at the next opportunity. If she was lying, I'd know. And then we'd see how tough her new friend was. I felt a surge of anger, remembering the sacrifices I'd made, deployments, near-death experiences, building this life for her, for us. And now some flashy real estate mogul with too much cologne thinks he can just waltz in and take what's mine? Not a chance in hell. That evening, Alexis went out again, claimed she had a dinner meeting with a sponsor. She hopped in her SUV wearing a sleek dress that was definitely not the kind she wore for charity dinners. Before she pulled out of the driveway, I managed to slip outside, crouch down behind the rear tire, and attach the small magnetic tracker. 10 seconds, done. I retreated inside, heart pounding, adrenaline surging through my veins. Mackenzie was in her room, likely doing homework or listening to music. I paced the living room, phone in hand, watching the little GPS map on my tracker app. Sure enough, Alexis's SUV traveled downtown. The app pinpointed her location near some upscale restaurant. She stayed there for about an hour. Then the car moved again, heading outside the city limits, eventually stopping near a country club. Another hour passed. By midnight, she was on the move again, this time toward an even more remote area, dotted with fancy cabin rentals. The little dot on my screen stopped in front of something called Meadow Ridge, a private resort. I stared at that blinking dot. My chest felt tight. My fists clenched. But I didn't jump in my truck and race over there. That might be exactly what they want to provoke me into a rage, to make me look like some unhinged brute. I needed to keep my composure, gather evidence. She rolled in around 2 in the morning. I pretended to be asleep on the couch. She hovered near me, presumably checking if I was out cold. I kept my breathing slow and steady. She sighed softly, then disappeared upstairs. I cracked my eyes open. The darkness pressed in. My phone was still in my hand, the GPS tracker app showing she'd just come straight from that Meadow Ridge place. This was no business meeting. That was the moment I decided to push forward. I'd find out who this Colin truly was, and I'd systematically unravel them both, piece by piece, until they had nowhere to hide. The next morning, I was up at dawn again, but this time my thoughts were heavier. I half expected Alexis to pop into my garage to say something about last night, to spin some new lie, but she left the house with barely a word. She said she had a work brunch, but I knew better. Mackenzie came out to the workshop, still in her pajamas, carrying a mug of hot cocoa. "Morning, Dad." "Morning," I said, forcing a smile. "You sleep okay?" She shrugged. "Not really. Mom came home so late. I heard the car at, 2. I swallowed, not wanting to stoke her fears. "Yeah, she's busy. Probably should talk to her about scaling back." Mackenzie frowned, then bit her lip. "Dad, something's weird. I can feel it. Do you want to talk about it?" Part of me wanted to spill everything. But how do you tell your teenager her mother might be cheating? That was a heartbreak I didn't want to lay on her just yet. "Not until I'm sure," I said gently. "But I promise I'll let you know when there's something to tell." She studied me, eyes bright with concern. "Okay. Well, I'm here if you need me." I patted her arm. "Thanks, kiddo." She headed back in to get dressed for school, leaving me alone with my messy thoughts. I busied myself with an engine tune-up for a new client's Yamaha. But all I could think about was how to confront Alexis. A few hours later, around noon, I peeked inside the house. Empty. Perfect. I rummaged through the trash in the kitchen, my stomach twisting at the notion, but I needed any scrap of evidence I could find. Sure enough, I found a wadded-up receipt from a hotel bar, dated the previous night. The name on the receipt was Alexis 1, scrawled in her neat cursive. The total was impressive, far more than just a quick drink. Expensive cocktails, wine, a fancy appetizer. My blood boiled. She had the audacity to pay for a romantic evening with the credit card we both funded. My phone buzzed. A text from Mac, an old Marine buddy who'd transitioned to a legal career. "Heard from Lance you might need some advice. Call me when you can." I smirked grimly, sending him a quick reply. "Stand by. We'll call soon." If this blew up the way I suspected, I'd need a good lawyer on my side, someone who'd believe me when I said I wasn't the villain. That afternoon, Alexis was radio silent. She didn't respond to my texts or calls. I dropped Mackenzie off at her friend's house so she could work on a group project, then sat in my living room, phone in hand, flipping between the GPS tracker app and my lawyer buddy's number. Her car was still parked at some downtown location, possibly Colin's office, possibly a coffee shop. I waited. Hours passed. By the time the little dot moved, it was nearing 7 p.m. She headed to some upscale part of town. I flicked on the TV, found a local channel. They were covering a business gala at the West Bridge Hotel. The reporter was gushing about local entrepreneurs and real estate moguls attending. I wondered if I'd spot Alexis. Sure enough, about 10 minutes in, the camera panned across a cluster of well-dressed people, and I could have sworn I saw her in the background, looking cozy with a tall, dark-haired man wearing a slick suit. Probably Colin. I turned off the TV before the rage in my chest swallowed me whole. The nerve of them flaunting it so openly. Did she think I was clueless, or did she just not care if I found out? A couple of hours later, Alexis finally returned home. I was in the kitchen flipping through the mail, making sure to keep my composure. She stepped inside, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. She looked glam hairstyled, makeup perfect, wearing a sleek black cocktail dress. If I didn't know better, I'd say she looked radiant. "Jeffrey," she greeted, clearing her throat. "Why are you still up?" I glanced at the clock. "It's only 9. She set her clutch purse on the counter. "Yeah, right." We stared at each other. The silence stretched. Then I tried to sound casual, though my heart thumped in my ears. "You have another event tonight?" She nodded. "Yes, actually. Some fundraiser. I told you about it." I almost laughed. "You tell me a lot of things." She bristled. "What's that supposed to mean?" I took a slow breath. "It means you're gone an awful lot these days. Mackenzie's worried about you. Hell, I'm worried about you. You're never around anymore. And when you are, you're on edge." Her gaze flicked away. "I have to meet the demands of my job, Jeff. It's not all playing dress-up. There's real pressure." "Okay," I said, stepping closer. "But is there something else going on?" She stiffened, refusing eye contact. "I'm fine. We're fine." I studied her for a moment. She was lying. I could feel it in my bones. But I wasn't going to corner her. Not yet. "If you say so," I said, stepping aside to let her pass. She paused, as if expecting me to keep questioning her. When I didn't, she scooped up her purse and hurried upstairs, leaving me alone in that hush of tension again. Not long after, my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "I don't want to cause trouble, but Alexis and Colin, it's out of control. Autumn." I recalled meeting Autumn at one of Alexis's events. She was Alexis's co-worker, a younger woman who looked up to Alexis, or so I thought. For her to text me like this meant the situation must be obvious even to casual onlookers. I typed back, "Thank you for telling me. I won't mention your name." She replied instantly, "Just be careful. He's not who he seems." I exhaled, rubbing my forehead. This was confirmation. My wife was indeed spending intimate time with Colin. The question was how far it had gone. The texts, the rumors, the appearances in fancy hotels. Unless all of that was just a random misunderstanding, which felt next to impossible. I locked my phone. My anger burned, but I forced it down. So many times, in the service, I'd had to swallow fear and adrenaline, stay cool under fire, plan the next move before pulling the trigger. This was no different. The next morning, I watched Alexis gather her laptop and documents, claiming she had a crucial meeting at the children's hospital. She refused breakfast, wouldn't even look me in the eye. After she drove off, I grabbed my phone and dialed Mac, my lawyer buddy. "Been waiting for your call, man," he greeted. "Lance told me you might need help." I hesitated. "I think Alexis is cheating," I said quietly, the words tasting bitter. "I have some evidence receipts, suspicious texts, her co-worker reaching out to me, but I need to be sure. And if it's true, if she keeps slandering me or tries to take advantage of me financially, I need to know my options." Mac took a breath. "Jeff, you know I got your back. First things first, gather every bit of proof you can. If you confront her now and it escalates, she might try to paint you as the bad guy, especially if she's hooking up with some powerful real estate type who can pull strings." "Exactly," I muttered. "He's named Colin. Well-connected, apparently." "Then be smart," Mac said. "Document everything. Keep calm. If it comes down to a legal showdown, you want to look like the rational, stable spouse. She can't manipulate you if you stay level-headed." I nodded, pressing the phone harder to my ear. "I appreciate it." "And Jeff," Mac added, "if you find out for sure she's cheating, don't do anything reckless. We'll handle it all, piece by piece." I said my goodbyes and hung up. The logical side of me agreed with Mac, but the part of me that was a father, a husband who'd been betrayed, wanted to do something else, something less patient. That afternoon, I picked Mackenzie up from school. She got in the car, tossed her backpack in the back seat, then sank down with a sigh. "How was your day?" I asked. She shrugged. "Fine. Some girls were talking about Mom's event planning stuff. Said they saw pictures online of her at the Westbridge Hotel last night." I felt a stab in my chest. "Yeah, she mentioned that gala." Mackenzie fiddled with her phone. "I just wish she'd talk to me more, you know?" "I know," I murmured. "Look, I'm going to try to figure out what's going on, all right? In the meantime, how about I cook your favorite tonight? Tacos? We can watch a movie or something." She gave a small smile. "That'd be nice. Thanks, Dad." When we got home, Alexis's SUV wasn't there. Surprise! Surprise! We headed inside, and I busied myself making dinner. Mackenzie retreated to her room to do homework. A half hour passed, an hour, no sign of Alexis. I checked the GPS tracker. She was across town, near some posh restaurant. My phone beeped with an update, showing her car was parked in that area for over an hour. I steeled myself. She was probably with him. 2 hours later, still no Alexis. Tacos cold on the table. Mackenzie had eaten quietly and gone back upstairs, not wanting to watch a movie without her mom. I sat there at the dining room table, staring at the empty chair where Alexis used to sit. My mind drifted back to old memories, our early days, when I'd just gotten out of the Marines and she was a bright-eyed woman with a passion for planning events. We'd talk for hours, sometimes about silly stuff, sometimes about big dreams. She used to look at me with this light in her eyes, used to say she couldn't believe she'd married a man so determined and protective. Now she was ignoring me, ignoring Mackenzie, presumably sneaking around with that suit-wearing scumbag. My jaw clenched. I waited until about 11 p.m. to see if she'd show. The GPS app said she was on the move, heading toward some downtown condo building. Then it stopped updating, possibly because she was inside the building's underground parking or something. Anger pounded in my ears. I told myself again and again, "Stay calm. Don't blow it." But my patience was fraying. Eventually, I texted her, "Are you coming home?" No reply. Midnight rolled around. The GPS showed she was still in that condo area. My phone beeped. A message from Alexis, finally. "Spending the night at Autumn's. Meeting early tomorrow." "Don't wait up." Spending the night at Autumn's. Sure, that's a convenient story. I typed back, all right, let me know if you need anything. I stared at my phone, half expecting her to call and scream at me for prying. But nothing. So I turned off the living room lights, locked the doors, and went to bed. As I lay there in the dark, I decided tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow, I'd start digging deeper. If she thought she could cheat on me without consequences, she was very, very mistaken. She never came home the next morning either. Mackenzie left for school, uneasy. I told her not to worry, but I could see it in her eyes. She felt abandoned. I had the day mostly open, no urgent client projects. So I hopped in my pickup and drove downtown, checking out the address where the GPS said Alexis had spent the night. Sure enough, it was a high-rise condominium building, the fancy kind with a doorman and valet parking. I parked across the street, watching for any sign of Alexis's SUV. After about 30 minutes of scanning, I saw its silver Lexus, tinted windows, pulling out of the building's underground garage. Alexis behind the wheel, hair done up in a neat bun, sunglasses perched on her nose. And who was in the passenger seat? A tall man in a crisp suit, angled jaw, perfectly styled hair, Colin, I presumed. They drove away together, my pulse hammered. Part of me wanted to tail them right then. But I decided to stay put, see if I recognized anything else about this building. Maybe I could note a unit number. But no. That doorman was eyeing me from across the street, so I drove off instead, swirling with cold rage. I ended up at a small diner on the outskirts of downtown. My appetite was non-existent, but I ordered a black coffee to keep my cover as a paying customer. While sipping that bitter brew, I scrolled through local news articles about real estate expansions, seeing Colin's name pop up. Colin Westbrook, real estate mogul connected to half the city's development projects. Untouchable in some folks' eyes. Well, not if I had anything to say about it. My phone buzzed. Another text from Autumn, the co-worker. He's bringing her to private lunches, introducing her as someone special. People are talking. I typed back, thank you. Keep me posted. She replied with a sad face emoji, then, I'm sorry this is happening. I stared at the phone. So Alexis wasn't even hiding it from some circles. She was basically letting him parade her around, probably telling them we were separated or that I was a jerk. My knuckles whitened around the coffee cup. Stay calm, I reminded myself. Patience. Gather evidence. I decided to push my luck and show up at Alexis's workplace. She had a small office near the downtown arts district, just a little suite that she used for client consultations as far as I knew. Maybe I'd see if she was there or if anyone had seen her. When I arrived, the door was locked. A small sign read, out of office. Please call for appointments. Great. So she wasn't even in. The building's lobby was quiet. A single receptionist behind a desk, flipping through a magazine. I approached, giving her a polite nod. Hi, do you know if Miss Alexis Harding is in today? The receptionist glanced at me, bored. She usually comes in around midday, but not consistently. You might want to call her cell. I forced a smile. Right, thanks. Wasted trip, maybe. Or maybe not. I was just trying to confirm her real schedule. Clearly, she was rarely in this office. Back at home, I found a piece of mail for Alexis. An invoice for some swanky floral arrangement dated last week. Probably for an event, right? Or maybe for something else. My mind churned. It was around 2 in the afternoon when I got a call from Mac. Jeff, you free to talk? Yeah, I said, stepping out to my workshop for privacy. All right, he continued. I've started pulling some basic intel on Colin Westbrook. He's under scrutiny for questionable land acquisitions. Nothing official yet, but rumors of bribery, shady business. If we push the right buttons, we might open some investigations. I exhaled. That's a start. But I need to know how deep Alexis is involved. Understood, Max said. If you can get proof of her affair plus any suggestion of her involvement in his shady deals, that could be leverage. Because if they try to pin anything on you, like abuse claims or financial demands in a divorce, they'll face a big blowback once we show they conspired to commit adultery or tarnish your reputation. My stomach twisted. Divorce. The word felt heavy. But maybe that was the inevitable path now. She'd chosen him over me, apparently. Okay, I said softly. I'll dig deeper. And Jeff, Mac added, I know it's personal, but don't let your anger drive you to do something that'd jeopardize your custody of Mackenzie. She's priority. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Right. My little girl's the only thing that matters. Late that afternoon, Alexis still hadn't shown up or contacted me. Mackenzie was due home from school soon, and I dreaded telling her her mother wasn't back. Suddenly, the front door creaked open. I stepped out of my workshop, seeing Alexis slip inside with a phone pressed to her ear. She wore a blouse and pencil skirt, looking very professional, but her face was drawn, tense. She paused when she saw me. I'll call you back, she murmured into the phone, then hung up. We stood there in silence, the weight of everything unspoken pressing down. You're home, I finally said. She nodded. Briefly. I have another engagement soon. I let out a soft, humorless chuckle. Of course you do. She stiffened. What does that mean? I squared my shoulders. It means you come and go at odd hours, smelling like cologne. You barely speak to me or Mackenzie. If you're going to lie to us, at least try harder. Her eyes flashed. I'm not lying. These events are essential for my career. I shook my head. Enough. I know about Colin. She blinked, panic flickering across her face for a split second. What are you talking about? I stepped closer, arms folded. Don't insult me, Alexis. I'm not stupid. Who is he to you? She pursed her lips, glancing away. He's a major donor, that's all. Major donor who calls you babe and spends nights with you at a condo downtown. Her cheeks burned red. You've been following me? I almost laughed. I wouldn't have to if you weren't sneaking around. God, Alexis, do you have any idea how hurt Mackenzie is? She sees right through your excuses. She stared at the floor. I didn't. It's not serious. It just sort of happened. I let out a breath, anger flaring again. You think that matters? You're breaking our marriage vows for something that just happened? That's your defense? She avoided eye contact. I never wanted to hurt you or Mackenzie. Colin offered me a chance to expand my network, introduce me to bigger charities. By sleeping with him? I snapped, unable to hold back the bitterness. She pressed her lips together, tears forming in her eyes. It started as flirting. A few lunches, then drinks I was in over my head. He's persuasive and we just... I held up a hand, stopping her explanation. Don't feed me that. You had a choice. I gave you everything, Alexis. I supported your career. I was the one raising Mackenzie when you were busy with these events. But I never dreamed you'd stoop this low. She sniffed, trying to quell her tears. I'm sorry. I wanted to laugh. Sorry. So easy to say. Are you still seeing him? I asked bluntly. She didn't answer, which was answer enough. At that moment, Mackenzie walked in through the front door, backpack slung over her shoulder. She froze at the sight of us in this tense confrontation. What's going on? She asked, eyes darting between me and her mother. Alexis wiped her cheek. Mackenzie, honey, it's complicated. Mackenzie's gaze sharpened. You two are fighting because you're never home, right? Mom, you're always gone. And Dad's worried sick. I'm worried too. Alexis swallowed. I am going to stay at a friend's place for a few days. Let things cool down. Mackenzie's face fell. You're leaving? Alexis nodded miserably. Anger surged inside me. She was bailing again, rather than face what she'd done. Coward. Fine, I said gruffly, not wanting to blow up in front of our daughter. Just go. But don't lie to her about why you're doing it. Alexis looked at me with a wounded expression, then turned to Mackenzie. I'll call you, baby, I promise. She brushed past me, heading up the stairs to grab a bag. Mackenzie stared at me, tears in her eyes. Dad, what the hell is happening? My heart hurt for her. I wish I knew how to explain, but your mom, she's not being honest with us. I can't force her to stay. Mackenzie let out a shaky breath, then fled to her room, slamming the door behind her. A few minutes later, Alexis came down with a small suitcase. She paused at the threshold, glancing at me. We'll talk soon, okay? I just need space. I said nothing, refusing to give her the satisfaction of a response. She let out a soft sob and walked out. I watched her car pull away, my chest tight with a swirl of betrayal and anger. So that was it. She just walked out, not even fighting for this family. I checked my phone. The GPS tracker app was still active, so I'd know exactly where she was headed. Part of me questioned if I should track her so closely, but another part insisted, knowledge is power. That night was a rough one. Mackenzie locked herself in her room, refusing dinner. I ended up standing outside her door. Hey, I called softly. Can I come in? No answer at first. Then the door cracked open and she was there, tears streaking her cheeks. I don't understand why she's doing this, she whispered. I stepped in, put an arm around her. I wish I had a clear answer, kiddo. Your mom, she's lost her way. It's not your fault, it's not about you. She sniffled. But she said she'd be here for me. She made all these promises. Now she's just gone? I swallowed hard, hugging her. I know, it's hard, but I'm here. I promise I won't leave. Her small arms clung to me. We stayed like that for a moment, father and daughter both wounded by the same betrayal. Eventually, she pulled away, wiping her face. She's with that man, isn't she? I hesitated. I'm not sure, I lied. But I suspect so. Mackenzie stared at me, eyes fierce. That's disgusting. I nodded in agreement, not trusting myself to speak. Once Mackenzie fell asleep, I grabbed my phone and called Lance. He answered on the second ring. Hey, man, you doing okay? I exhaled. Not really. She's basically admitted she's seeing some real estate guy named Colin. She left the house. He paused. Damn, I'm sorry. Anything I can do? I need your help setting up cameras, I said bluntly. Inside the house, maybe? And around the perimeter. I want to record any interactions in case she tries something. Lance didn't skip a beat. You got it. I'll swing by tomorrow. We'll get it done. I nodded, relieved. Thanks. The last thing I want is for her or that bastard to waltz in here and spin lies about me being violent or something. Lance was quiet a moment. Yeah. You want proof to protect yourself? Smart. You sure you're okay? I'm angry, I admitted. But I'm not going to do anything reckless. Not yet. He sighed. All right. I'm here for you, brother. I hung up and stared at the dark living room. The clock read past midnight. My mind reeled. This was war. She'd chosen her side. I'd fight for what's mine, do whatever it took. The next morning, I woke to the sound of a light knock on the front door. I was sprawled on the living room couch, having dozed off sometime after 3 a.m. Rubbing my eyes, I hauled myself up and checked through the peephole. It was Lance, tool bag in hand, wearing an apologetic expression. I opened the door. letting him in. "Thanks for coming early," I muttered. He nodded. "Figured you'd want this done ASAP." We got to work quietly. Mackenzie was still sleeping. We installed small cameras in a few strategic places: the living room, kitchen, and near the front and back entrances. Nothing in the bedrooms or bathrooms. This wasn't about being creepy. It was about ensuring if Alexis waltzed in with Colin or tried to stir trouble, we'd have a record of it. Lance tested the feed on his phone. "Looks good. All these cameras store footage on a local hard drive in your workshop, plus an online backup. Nobody can tamper with it unless they physically break the equipment." I nodded, grateful. "I owe you." He shrugged. "You'd do the same for me." We finished up just as Mackenzie padded into the living room, hair messy with sleep. She blinked at Lance, then at me. "What's all this?" I gave her a reassuring smile. "Security. Just being cautious, that's all." She accepted it with a tired nod, not pressing further. After Lance left, Mackenzie asked if she could stay home from school. She was still upset. I thought about it, then agreed. "We'll call you in sick." She plopped down on the couch, hugging a pillow. "I keep waiting for Mom to text me or something. She hasn't." I sat beside her. "She might be trying to figure out what to say. This whole situation is messed up. I'm sorry you're in the middle of it." She sniffed. "You didn't do this, Dad." "She did." I gently patted her shoulder. I couldn't deny it. Alexis had chosen to cheat. She'd chosen to break her marriage vows. Mackenzie and I were just collateral damage. Around noon, a text finally arrived on my phone from Alexis. "I want to see Mackenzie. I'm coming by." I showed the message to Mackenzie. She frowned. I don't know if I want to talk to her." "I'll handle it," I said gently. "You can stay in your room, if you prefer." She nodded, eyes wary. Less than an hour later, Alexis's SUV pulled into the driveway. I could see her face through the front window as she parked, looking anxious. I checked the feed from our newly installed cameras. Perfect. Everything was recording. She rang the doorbell. I opened it, stepping outside so she wouldn't barge in. "Where's Mackenzie?" she asked. "Inside," I said shortly. "She's upset." Alexis wrung her hands. "I need to talk to her. I need to apologize." I glanced back at the house. "I'll ask if she wants to see you, but if she says no, you'll respect that." She nodded, tears in her eyes. Yes, of course." I stepped back in, letting the door close behind me. Mackenzie peeked around the corner. "Mom wants to see you," I said softly. "It's your call." Mackenzie hesitated, then exhaled. "Fine. I'll talk to her, but not long." I opened the door and let Alexis in. She surveyed the house like it was foreign territory, her gaze landing on the bare coffee table, the faint evidence that I'd slept on the couch. She looked stricken. "Mackenzie," she began, stepping forward. "I'm so sorry." My daughter's posture was stiff, arms crossed. "Sorry for what?" Alexis swallowed. "For not being there. For leaving the other day." Mackenzie's eyes welled up with tears, but her voice remained strong. "You're never here anymore anyway. What's the difference?" Alexis flinched. "I know. I've been caught up in my work and other things." I stood near the kitchen counter, arms folded, silently observing. The camera overhead was capturing every word. Mackenzie glared at her mother. "You mean Colin?" A flicker of shock crossed Alexis's face. Who told you that name?" "I'm not stupid, Mom. Everyone's whispering about you two." Alexis's cheeks flushed. "It's complicated." Mackenzie shook her head. "That's what grown-ups always say. You're making excuses. You know how humiliating it is at school, hearing gossip about your mother hooking up with some rich guy?" Tears finally spilled down Alexis's cheeks. "I never wanted to hurt you. I just got lost." Mackenzie's jaw tightened. Dad was always here for me. You weren't. And now you're messing around with that jerk. Alexis tried to reach out, but Mackenzie recoiled. Get out, Mackenzie whispered. I don't want to talk to you anymore. I stepped forward, placing a protective hand on Mackenzie's shoulder. I gave Alexis a firm look. I think you should leave. She's made it clear. Alexis sobbed. Please, baby, I'll do anything. You should go, I repeated, voice steady. We'll talk later, maybe. But right now she's not ready. Alexis let out a broken sigh and headed to the door. But as she passed me, she grabbed my arm. Jeffrey, we have to figure this out. Colin's father is pushing him to handle this situation. He wants me to smear you so that any legal blowback... I froze. What are you talking about? Her eyes flicked to Mackenzie, who was standing behind me. She lowered her voice. Not here. Can we meet privately? I stared at her, fury swirling in my gut. Privately? Like how you meet him privately? She winced. It's about lawyers, reputations, everything. I don't want to see you ruined. I laughed bitterly. You should have thought of that before sleeping with him. She choked back another sob and rushed out the door. I locked it behind her, then guided Mackenzie to the couch. She collapsed into tears, and I held her. My jaw was clenched the entire time, mind racing about what Alexis had just hinted at. Colin's father? Smear campaign? So they were planning a counterattack. Well, I wasn't going to stand idly by. Once Mackenzie calmed down, I sent her upstairs to rest. She was emotionally spent. Then I checked the camera footage, ensuring it recorded that entire scene. It had. Perfect. No one could claim I'd been abusive or threatening. It showed Alexis, tearful, explaining the situation. I dialed Mac, my lawyer friend. Listen, something new came up, I said, keeping my voice low. Alexis hinted that Colin's father wants to drag me through the mud, probably to shield Colin if I press charges or expose them. Is that possible? Mac didn't miss a beat. Sure. If Colin's father has political clout or money, he could try to spin a story that you're violent or that you neglected Alexis, basically painting you as a monster so your claims lose credibility. I nodded grimly. They won't get away with that. I have evidence. Keep gathering it, Max said, and be prepared. This could get nasty. I gripped the phone tight. They picked the wrong Marine to mess with. That afternoon, Lance came by again, noticing the tension. He didn't ask many questions, just offered to help in any way. I considered telling him about Alexis's mention of a smear campaign, but for now, I kept it to myself. No need to spook him. We adjusted the camera angles, tested the audio. Everything was working perfectly. I felt a strange satisfaction in being prepared. If Alexis or Colin tried anything, I'd have proof. In the early evening, I stepped out to my workshop, pretending to check on a bike project. But, in reality, I needed a quiet space to think. My eyes fell on that old family photo again. We'd been so happy. What changed? When did Alexis decide I wasn't enough? I shook my head. Useless questions. The fact was, she'd betrayed me, betrayed Mackenzie, chosen to run around with Colin. My phone buzzed, a text from Mackenzie. I'm hungry. Are we going to do dinner? I typed back, sure, I'll make something in a sec. Then I fired off one more message to Autumn, Alexis's co-worker who'd been giving me tips. Any new info? She replied, they're planning a big event soon. I think Alexis might be forging some documents to help Colin with sponsor money. My pulse quickened. That was big. If Alexis was forging event planning documents for him, that was outright fraud. If I could get proof of that, it could blow up in Colin's face and possibly get Alexis in serious trouble. But that was on her. I texted Mac about it. Possible fraud. We need to investigate. He answered, agreed. Also talk to your bank, see if there's any suspicious charges or if she's moved money around. One step at a time, I reminded myself. Mackenzie and I ended up making spaghetti for dinner. She was quiet, pushing noodles around her plate. Occasionally, she'd ask if I thought Mom would come home again. I didn't have a solid answer. It's complicated, I said softly. I don't think she's going to live here for a while. Mackenzie looked so sad that I had to restrain myself from raging about Alexis in front of her. She was already hurting enough. After dinner, we watched some silly sitcom reruns, trying to lighten the mood. It almost felt normal for a bit, the two of us laughing at the TV. Except the missing presence of Alexis was a dark shadow hanging over us. By 10 o'clock, I told Mackenzie to head to bed. She trudged upstairs, exhaustion on her face. I stayed downstairs scanning the GPS tracker. Alexis's SUV was at a restaurant on the east side of town. My guess, she was with him again. My phone rang. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Is this Jeffrey Harding? A slick male voice asked. It is. Who's calling? This is Colin Westbrook. I froze. Then a slow, dangerous burn ignited in my chest. How'd you get this number? He chuckled. I have my ways. Listen, man, we need to talk. I swallowed. We do? Yeah, I'm not looking to fight. I just think we should come to an understanding. Your wife's decided she wants a different kind of life, and frankly, I can give her that. So let's keep things civilized, shall we? My grip on the phone tightened. You think you can just steal her away and then call me to gloat? He sighed dramatically. I'm not gloating. I'm just stating facts. She's unhappy with you. She wants more out of life. I provide that. I bit down on my tongue, trying not to unleash my fury. Let me guess. Your father told you to do some damage control, so you're calling to pretend you're the bigger man? A short silence. Then he scoffed. You don't understand who you're dealing with, Harding. My father is well connected. If you keep trying to paint me as the villain, we'll bury you. Legally, financially, everything. That a threat? I asked quietly. A promise, he spat. Back off, or you'll regret it. I closed my eyes, letting the rage sink into my bones. Listen carefully, Westbrook. You might have your fancy connections, but I was a Marine. I've faced men far scarier than you. Do you really want to test that? He made an annoyed sound. Oh, the tough guy talk. Enough. Alexis is with me now. Accept it, or I'll make sure you suffer. I forced out a low laugh. Don't call me again. Next time I'll let my lawyer do the talking. Then I hung up. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. This was it. He'd declared war. And from what Alexis said, his father was behind him, ready to launch a smear campaign. But they didn't realize I was already steps ahead. I slumped onto the couch, replaying the conversation in my head. My phone beeped with a text from an unknown contact. This is your final warning. Don't cross me again. I deleted it. Final warning, huh? They had no idea. I woke the next morning feeling like my chest was hollowed out and stuffed with burning coals. Colin's final text, this is your final warning. Don't cross me again. Still swirled in my mind, an arrogant challenge I couldn't ignore. But I had to hold steady. Rushing into a confrontation would only give them ammunition to paint me as unstable. Instead, I reminded myself of what Mac, my attorney friend, kept urging. Gather all the proof, and don't lose your cool. I'd face down worse. The only difference here was that the battlefield was my personal life, not foreign soil. My first move that morning was to check on Mackenzie. She'd been so upset after Alexis's visit yesterday. I tapped softly on her door. Come in, came her muffled reply. I pushed the door open, finding her still curled under the covers, textbooks and notebooks strewn across her desk. Her eyes were puffy, like she hadn't slept well. "Hey," I said gently, stepping inside. "You all right?" She shrugged, sitting up and brushing hair out of her face. "I dreamed about Mom, about her leaving." She gave me a sad half-laugh. "Kinda used to that now, I guess." My heart clenched. "I'm sorry, kiddo, I really am." She fiddled with a loose thread on her blanket. "It's not your fault, Dad. She left on her own. I just can't believe she's with that guy. She's not even hiding it." I exhaled. "I know. Unfortunately, I think we're dealing with someone who has a lot of arrogance. That rubs off on your mom, apparently." Mackenzie nodded. "She's different, like a stranger." I reached out, squeezed her shoulder. "You focus on your day. Go to school. Try to keep your mind on your classes, your friends. I'll deal with this mess." She gave me a watery smile. "Thank you, Dad." I left her room feeling a renewed determination to protect her from more fallout. The only question was how to do that without letting my fury get the best of me. Downstairs, I pulled up a seat at the kitchen table, phone in hand. I debated calling Alexis, but the last time we spoke, it turned into more heartbreak. Instead, I dialed Mac. He picked up on the third ring. "Jeff," he greeted, voice calm. "What's the situation?" I relayed the gist of Colin's phone call and his smug threat. Mac let out a low whistle. "They're definitely preparing to strike first. Maybe claim you're harassing them or pushing Alexis away from her rightful home. Watch your step." "I have the cameras in place," I said. "If she tries to barge in, or if he does, we'll have footage." "Good." Mac paused. "I dug a little deeper last night on Colin's business dealings. He's on the cusp of finalizing a major development project. Something about a new shopping complex. My guess is he's got too much money at stake to risk a scandal. That's probably why he or his father is leaning on Alexis to smear you so you lose credibility if you expose him." I mulled that over. "That means if we manage to gather tangible evidence, documents, witnesses, they'll be in deep trouble. Good motivation for them to try to silence me." "Exactly," Mac agreed. "And if Alexis is forging sponsor documents, as your contact Autumn suggested, that's serious fraud. The bigger the donation, the bigger the potential charges." A flicker of guilt tugged at me. Alexis was still Mackenzie's mother after all. But she'd crossed the line. She'd chosen a path that jeopardized our family. "So what do we do?" I asked. "Keep collecting. If you can glean specifics about the documents or the money trail, we'll hand it over to the right authorities. Just be cautious who you trust." We hashed out a few more details, then said our goodbyes. By the time I hung up, I decided to push Autumn more for information. She seemed like the only reliable insider close to Alexis these days. Mackenzie left for school, and I spent the morning in my workshop, trying to calm my nerves by tuning a custom Harley for a wealthy client. Usually, the mechanical process soothes me, but my mind kept drifting back to the texts, to the possibility that Alexis was forging event planning documents. Did she realize how deep she was sinking, or was she so infatuated with Colin's promises that she didn't care? Late morning, I paused work to shoot Autumn a text. "Need details about the sponsor docs. Can we talk?" She replied almost instantly. "Lunch break at noon. Meet me at the Java Brew, downtown." I agreed. My stomach fluttered with a mixture of excitement and dread. If Autumn really had details that could help, it might be the break I needed. At noon sharp, I parked outside Java Brew, a cozy coffee shop near the business district. Glass windows lined the facade, offering a clear view of the inside. I spotted Autumn at a small table in the corner, fiddling with her phone. She looked nervous, glancing around as though expecting Alexis or Colin to appear. I slipped in, ordered a black coffee, and joined her. She managed a tight smile. "Hey, Jeffrey," she murmured. "You doing okay?" "Depends on your definition of okay," I replied, taking a seat. "Thanks for meeting me." She nodded, casting another quick look around. "Alexis told me she was, taking some personal time, but I know she's with Colin." I inhaled. "And how does that tie into these suspicious sponsored documents?" Autumn leaned in, lowering her voice. "She's been telling people she's securing huge donations for the hospital and other charities, but the amounts she's quoted are ridiculously high. We're talking hundreds of thousands. I overheard her and Colin joking about how easy it is to shuffle numbers in the event budgets." My heart pounded. "So she's inflating donations and pocketing the difference? Or funneling it somewhere else?" "That's what it looks like," Autumn said gravely. "Colin claims it's for expansion costs or administrative fees, but I suspect it's going into his real estate deals. Alexis is, from what I can gather, forging some receipts or sponsor confirmations to make the numbers look legit." I fought to keep my composure. That's fraud of a serious level, especially if they're using charitable donations as a front. Autumn nodded, eyes wide with worry. "I know. That's why I texted you. I felt awful seeing her tumble into this mess, but she's in deep. And I also know you're dealing with her betrayal personally. It's all so screwed up." I rubbed my jaw. "You have any actual documents or emails you can share? I can't just accuse them without proof." She glanced around again, then opened her purse, pulling out a folded piece of paper. "I printed this from the office computer. It's an event ledger for a recent gala. Check the donation amounts and cross-reference the actual checks that came in." I unfolded it, scanning the typed lines. Indeed, large sums were listed under sponsor names, each one at least double or triple typical donations. Next to them were disclaimers about anonymous donors or matching funds that never made it to the actual hospital. I whistled softly. "This is big." Autumn swallowed. "I might lose my job if anyone finds out I leaked this, but I can't keep quiet watching them scam people." I gently placed a hand on hers. "Thank you. I promise I'll keep your involvement quiet. This helps a lot." She offered a weak smile, then took a shaky sip of her latte. "Jeffrey, Alexis used to be so kind. She was my mentor when I started. I don't know how it got this bad." I sighed. People change. Sometimes they let greed or lust drive them. She's not the same woman I married. We shared a moment of heavy silence. Then Autumn slid another small envelope across the table. "This is her schedule for the next 2 weeks. The events she's planning with Colin. You might catch them in the act. Forging more stuff." I nodded, tucking it into my jacket pocket. "You're risking a lot for me. I appreciate it." She shrugged sadly. "I'm just trying to do what's right." Before we parted ways, I gave her a quick update on my plan. Gather enough evidence, present it to Mac, then see if the authorities can be alerted. She wished me luck, then slipped out of the cafe, head down, as if terrified someone might recognize her. I lingered to finish my coffee, mind buzzing with possibilities. If Alexis was indeed forging documents on top of her affair, that gave me serious leverage. But it also meant the stakes were higher if Colin realized I had that knowledge. He might escalate his threats. Back in my truck, I scanned the event schedule Autumn had provided. A black tie fundraiser next week, a private sponsor dinner in a fancy penthouse, an out-of-town weekend conference. My throat went dry. That last one could be the perfect cover for them to slip away and do whatever they wanted. I started the engine, flipping on the radio to distract myself. A local news segment was running, mentioning something about a new real estate project. My ears perked up at the mention of Westbrook Properties. Sure enough, They were praising Colin Westbrook's upcoming development, describing him as a visionary. Visionary, my ass, I thought, pulling out into traffic. If only they knew what kind of shady dealings were happening behind closed doors. At home, I found Mackenzie sitting at the kitchen table, nibbling on a snack. She glanced up. "How was your day?" I forced a smile. "Productive. Had a chat with a friend who gave me some information." She studied me. "Information about Mom and that guy?" I nodded. "Yeah, I'm working on sorting some things out. I don't want to bore you with the details, but just know I'm trying to protect us." Mackenzie bit her lip. Can we talk about something else for a moment?" "Sure, kiddo." She fiddled with her phone. "A friend asked me if I wanted to go to the school dance next month. She's going with a group, not a date or anything. I wasn't sure if we can afford me buying a new dress, or—" My chest tightened. Amid all the chaos, she was still a teenager with teenage concerns. "Of course you can go," I said gently. "Don't worry about the dress cost, I can help out." Her face lit up. "Really? I just didn't want to, 'cause stress with everything going on." I mustered a real smile. "You deserve to do normal things. This is your life. You only get one high school experience." She nodded, eyes glistening with gratitude. "Thanks, Dad." For a moment, the dark cloud of Alexis's betrayal and Colin's threats lifted, replaced by the simple joy of my daughter's excitement for a school dance. That fleeting sense of normalcy reminded me why I had to see this fight through. Later that evening, Mackenzie retreated to her room to study, and I checked my phone for any message from Alexis or from Autumn. Nothing from Alexis, which didn't surprise me. She was probably with Colin, but Autumn texted me a short note. "Be careful. Heard Colin's father might be pulling strings to keep the real estate deal hush-hush." I typed back a quick "understood." That's when I made a decision. I'd take the evidence Autumn provided, the forged sponsor ledger, and show it to Mac in person tomorrow. We'd figure out how to approach the authorities or the hospital board. If I timed it right, Colin and Alexis wouldn't see it coming. Even so, I felt a nagging fear that they'd try to discredit me. Their next move might be painting me as an abusive husband who wanted revenge. But if I had enough proof, the truth would prevail. I stared at the camera's live feed on my phone. The living room was empty, the lights off. No sign of Alexis. If she had the nerve to show up unannounced, we'd be ready. Around midnight, Mackenzie was fast asleep. I was still awake, sitting in the dark living room, phone in hand. The tracker app showed Alexis's car parked at the same upscale condo building as before. My mind conjured vile images of her and Colin together, laughing at my expense. The betrayal, the forging of documents, the disrespect for our marriage, it all churned into a toxic swirl of anger in my gut. But I forced myself to remain calm. Tomorrow, I'd take a decisive step. I drifted off into a restless sleep on the couch, the phone pressed to my chest, fully prepared for a new day of battle. The next morning, I woke up stiff and sore, but determined. I got Mackenzie off to school, promising to pick her up afterward. Then, I locked up the house, hopped in my truck, and drove to Mac's law office. Mac rented a modest suite in a professional complex. Nothing flashy, but it was private and secure. I parked, grabbed the folded sponsor ledger from my glove compartment, and headed inside. The receptionist, a young man in a crisp shirt, greeted me. "Mr. Harding, you can go right in. Mac's expecting you." I followed the short hallway to Mac's office. He was waiting at his desk, glasses perched on his nose, flipping through some documents. He looked up and nodded. "Jeff, you look like a man on a mission." I set the paper on his desk, pulling up a chair. You have no idea. He gestured for me to sit, then unfolded the ledger. His eyes scanned the lines, and he gave a low whistle. These amounts are inflated beyond reason. Are these actual sponsor signatures or forgeries? According to my source who works with Alexis, these are either fake sponsors or heavily doctored amounts that never make it to the charity. Mac tapped a pen against the page. If we present this to the hospital board or the authorities, it's a major accusation. We'll need them to cross-check real donations. But if it's verified, that's criminal fraud. I exhaled. And Alexis is either complicit or leading the charge, along with Colin. Mac nodded. Colin's definitely pulling the strings for his real estate deals, no doubt. But your wife, ex-wife, soon enough she's in up to her neck. I leaned forward, voice low. How do we use this effectively without tipping them off too soon? Mac tapped a finger on his desk. Typically, I'd advise we approach the hospital's internal audit team confidentially. Show them this ledger. Ask them to compare to their official records. If the fraud is proven, the hospital might launch an investigation, eventually roping in law enforcement. I considered that. And what about me, personally? If Alexis tries to claim I'm the abusive spouse, I want to be sure this isn't turned around on me. He patted a folder on his desk. We have your security camera footage that shows she left willingly. No signs of abuse. We also have text messages from her co-worker, your phone logs, where Colin threatened you, plus any documentation we can gather about their affair. You look squeaky clean in comparison. Relief mingled with tension in my chest. So, we move forward? Yes, he said firmly. But we do it carefully. Let me handle the approach to the hospital board. I'll schedule a discreet meeting, bring the ledger. Meanwhile, you keep your eyes open. If Alexis or Colin tries anything like forced entry or a smear campaign, document it all. I nodded, standing up. Thanks, Mac. I appreciate having someone in my corner. He extended his hand. Always, Jeff. Just promise me you won't do anything impulsive. Let's do this by the book. I forced a grin. I'll try my best. On my drive home, a swirl of emotions threatened to unravel me: anger at Alexis, heartbreak for Mackenzie, a strange sense of betrayal by the entire situation. But I'd set a plan into motion now. That gave me a grim sense of purpose. I was no longer just waiting for them to make the next move. I pulled into my driveway, glancing around as if expecting Alexis's SUV or some goon from Colin. Nothing. The neighborhood was quiet under the midday sun. Inside, I went to my workshop to check on a half-finished custom job for a client. Sinking into the mechanical rhythm always helps me center myself. As I polished the bike's chrome, I let my mind wander through the timeline. Alexis left me. She's forging sponsor documents. Colin threatened me. I'm about to blow the whistle on their entire racket. A twinge of guilt surfaced. Part of me still cared about Alexis as a person, if only for the memories we once shared. But she'd chosen her side. The woman I married was gone, replaced by a liar. Around 3 p.m., I headed out to pick up Mackenzie from school. She hopped into the passenger seat, backpack in her lap, and sighed. Hey, Dad. Hey, kiddo. How was your day? She shrugged. Fine. People keep whispering about Mom and that real estate guy, though. I keep hearing how they were spotted at fancy restaurants or how she was bragging about some major project. It's embarrassing. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. I'm sorry you have to deal with that. Just remember it's not your fault, okay? Your mom's choices have nothing to do with you. She nodded slowly, gazing out the window. I know, but people can be cruel. I squeezed her shoulder gently. Then they're not worth your time. You just keep your head up. She offered a small smile. Thanks. So, any new developments? I hesitated. Let's just say I'm working on something that could change the situation, but I don't want to get your hopes up yet. Just trust me. She studied me, then nodded. I do trust you. Those 4 words warmed me more than anything else. That evening after dinner, we were watching some TV in the living room when the doorbell rang. My heart jolted. Mackenzie gave me a worried look. Stay here, I told her, rising from the couch. I checked the camera feed on my phone before opening the door. To my surprise, it was Alexis standing on the porch, alone, arms folded, shoulders hunched like she was carrying the weight of the world. I opened the door just a crack, not unhooking the chain. What do you want? She looked tired. I need to talk to you. Please. My gut twisted. Is it about Mackenzie or about your sponsor documents? Her eyes widened slightly. Sponsor documents? What do you— Jeffrey, let me in. I can't talk out here. I weighed the risks, but I had the cameras rolling, so at least I'd have proof if she tried anything. With a grim nod, I unlatched the chain and let her in. She stepped inside, spotting Mackenzie on the couch. My daughter gave her a cold stare, then marched upstairs without a word. Alexis watched her go, eyes filling with tears. Don't blame her, I said, keeping my voice even. She's hurt. Alexis swallowed. I know. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I gestured toward the kitchen. We'll talk in here. She followed me, her heels clicking softly. The tension was thick. The overhead light cast harsh shadows on her face, making her look older, worn out. Spill it, I said, leaning against the counter. She fiddled with her hands. Colin's father found out about certain rumors. He wants me to sign some papers stating you were mentally abusive, that I had to leave for my safety. He said if I don't, he'll make sure I'm implicated in financial irregularities. My heart hammered. So the father was blackmailing her. You mean forging sponsor documents? Her face paled. How do you know about that? I didn't answer, just stared at her. She swallowed hard. Jeffrey, I messed up. Colin convinced me that we could pad the numbers a bit, shuffle donations, invest in his developments, then pay it back. He said it was short-term. Unbelievable, I muttered. You do realize that's illegal? She nodded, eyes brimming with tears. I know. And now I'm in deep. Colin's father basically said if I don't slander you, they'll throw me under the bus. They'll claim I acted alone. I let out a slow breath, rage coiling in my stomach. So you're here to what? Beg for my help? Her lip trembled. I don't know. I can't smear you like that. You're Mackenzie's dad, and I care about you both despite my mistakes, but if I don't, they'll destroy me, possibly arrest me. I folded my arms, glaring at her. Maybe that's what you deserve. She flinched. You can't really want that for me, do you? I stared at the floor, torn between vengeance and a flicker of pity. You made your bed, Alexis, and you might have to lie in it. She wiped her eyes. Can't we find another way? Colin's father is pulling the strings. He's the real criminal here. If we could just prove it, maybe they'd go after him, not me. You expect me to bail you out when you stab me in the back? I asked quietly, teeth clenched. I know I hurt you, she sobbed. But please, Jeffrey, I'm still the mother of your child. I was stupid and selfish, but I never wanted any of this. My anger warred with the memory of the woman I once loved, the mother of my daughter. I exhaled, forcing my voice to stay even. I'll think about it. But you should know, I'm already taking steps. Legal steps. She froze. You have evidence? I smirked bitterly. You're not the only one who can gather documents, Alexis. Now get out. This conversation is over. She gaped at me, tears rolling down her cheeks. Jeffrey, please. I pointed to the door. Out! Her shoulders sagged. She turned and left without another word. I slammed the door behind her, my chest heaving with a mixture of triumph and guilt. The camera overhead had captured it all. She just admitted to forging donations, or at least facilitating it. Mackenzie poked her head downstairs, eyes wide. "Everything okay?" I mustered a weary nod. "She's gone." "What did she want?" I sighed. "Basically, she's in a bind. Colin's father wants her to lie about me, or else they'll pin the fraud on her." Mackenzie's expression tightened. "What do you think she'll do?" "Hopefully she won't stoop that low, but we can't trust her." She looked down. "I can't believe Mom's gotten herself into such a mess." I reached out, hugging her gently. "Me neither, kiddo. But it's out of our hands now. I'm working on it." She rested her head against my shoulder. "I hate them for doing this to us." I swallowed, stroking her hair. "Yeah, me too." After Mackenzie went back up to her room, I checked the footage from our camera. Crystal clear audio of Alexis admitting to the forging scheme, plus the fact that Colin's father was blackmailing her. This was gold. The next morning, I emailed a copy to Mac, labeling it urgent. He replied with a single line, "This is the smoking gun. We proceed." I didn't know if Alexis was about to break under pressure and sign those smear documents. But if she did, I'd have enough evidence to prove she was coerced. Meanwhile, if she refused, Colin's father might bury her. Either way, I was done letting them call the shots. The wheels were in motion, unstoppable now. The next few days felt like a storm gathering on the horizon. Every morning, I'd check my phone to see if Mac had updates, then watch the cameras around the house. Mackenzie tried to focus on school, but I could see the anxiety etched on her face. I busied myself with my motorcycle projects, though the hum of engines did little to quell the tension coiling in my gut. Part of me almost hoped Colin or one of his hired thugs would show up, just so I could put them in their place. On the third day after Alexis's plea for help, Mac called me. "I've arranged a meeting with the hospital board tomorrow morning. They agreed to see us privately. We'll present the sponsor ledger plus the video of Alexis's admission. If they confirm the fraud, they'll proceed legally." My throat felt dry. "And if Colin tries to sabotage it?" "They can't ignore solid proof. Also, I suspect the board is already suspicious because the donation amounts on record aren't matching actual bank deposits. They'll be very interested in your ledger." I nodded, adrenaline spiking. "All right, let's do it." That evening, I got a text from Alexis. "Need to talk. Please call me." I ignored it at first, anger flaring. But after a half hour of pacing, I dialed her number. Might as well see what new angle she was pushing. She picked up on the first ring. "Jeffrey, thank God. Listen, I can't sign that lie about you being abusive. I won't do it." Relief flickered through me, followed by caution. "That's good to hear. But what about Colin's father's threats?" She hesitated. "He said if I don't, they'll blame the entire fraud on me. But I can't destroy you to save myself. I'm not that far gone." I pressed my lips together. "So you're going to turn on them? Turn on Colin?" A ragged sigh. "I don't know. I'm scared. Colin says if I betray him, I'll be left with nothing, no job, no money, no support." I fought to keep my voice steady. "Well, you made your bed. You wanted a different life, you got it. Now you either do the right thing or bury yourself deeper." She sniffled. "I deserve that. If you have any shred of care left for me, please help me find a way out that doesn't end with me in jail." I almost laughed at the irony. She'd cheated on me, betrayed me, and now she wanted my help. My better angels whispered that she was still Mackenzie's mother. The harsher side of me wanted to see her pay. "Look," I said finally, "I can't promise anything, but if you want to avoid jail, the best route is full disclosure. Confess. Provide evidence of how Colin orchestrated this. Mac can advise you. She was silent for a moment. I'll think about it. Thank you for picking up. Without saying goodbye, she ended the call. I set my phone down, heart pounding. The meeting with the board was tomorrow. If Alexis came clean, maybe it would lighten her sentence, but that was up to the authorities. The next morning, bright and early, I met Mac outside the hospital's administrative building. He wore a crisp suit, briefcase in hand. I wore my best button-down and slacks, feeling slightly out of place but determined. We were ushered into a small conference room where 3 members of the hospital board waited, along with their in-house counsel. They looked grave, clearly sensing the gravity of the allegations. Mac opened with a short statement, then presented the sponsor ledger. I watched their faces as they pored over the figures. One board member, a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes, frowned deeply. These amounts aren't what we have on file. The official records show donations that match these totals, but we never actually received the funds. Mac nodded. Exactly. They were manipulated to appear as though the hospital benefited. Meanwhile, Ms. Alexis Harding and Mr. Colin Westbrook likely diverted the money for personal or business use. We also have an audio-video clip of Ms. Harding admitting involvement in forging sponsor documents. He tapped on his laptop, playing the portion of the video where Alexis confessed. The board members exchanged looks, some of shock, some of anger. "This is serious," the in-house counsel muttered, adjusting his glasses. "Fraud, embezzlement, possibly money laundering if it ties to real estate." I spoke up, voice steady. "My wife, ex-wife, rather fell under the influence of Mr. Westbrook. But that doesn't excuse her actions. I'm here to give you the proof so you can take the necessary steps. If you cross-check your finances, you'll see the shortfall." The board members exchanged curt nods. The older woman sighed. "Mr. Harding, we appreciate your coming forward. Our next step is to launch an immediate internal audit and, if warranted, file official charges with law enforcement. We may need your cooperation." "Anything to ensure justice," I said, meaning every word. The meeting wrapped up after a few more questions about how I obtained the ledger and the video. Mac was careful not to mention Autumn by name, saying only that a concerned insider provided it. The board accepted that, more focused on the seriousness of the fraud. As we left, Mac clapped a hand on my shoulder. "Nice work, Jeff. This is the beginning of the end for them." I nodded, a strange mix of triumph and sadness churning in my gut. Alexis might end up behind bars. Colin definitely would, if the authorities followed the money trail. And I was the one who lit the spark. We stepped outside into the bright morning sun. As we headed to our cars, a dark sedan pulled up. I stiffened. The passenger door opened, and out stepped a tall man with silver hair and a severe expression. Mac whispered, "That's Westbrook Sr." I recognized him from pictures. So this was Colin's father. He stared at me across the parking lot, lips pursed, then beckoned me over. I glanced at Mac, who nodded, stepping aside but staying within earshot. I walked up, posture stiff. "Something you want?" He studied me with cold eyes. "You're making a grave mistake, Harding. My son's affairs are none of your concern." I almost laughed. "He made it my concern when he seduced my wife and threatened me." His mouth twitched. "Colin tells me you're meddling in business that doesn't concern you. He also mentioned you have illusions of exposing certain deals. Let me give you a piece of advice. Drop it." I folded my arms. "Not happening." He tilted his chin up. "You think you can stand against the Westbrook family? We have more money, more connections, and more power than you could dream. One word from me, and your entire life could be dismantled." Rage simmered in my veins, but I kept my voice level. "I've heard that threat before. A bigger army tried to kill me overseas, and they failed. You think your money scares me? He narrowed his eyes. Your arrogance will cost you dearly. I leaned in, letting the tension crackle. No, Mr. Westbrook. Your son's arrogance cost both of you. The hospital board is already reviewing evidence of your fraud. The police will be next. That's not arrogance, it's fact. His face went pale. You have no idea the damage you're causing. I shrugged. If you want to blame someone, blame your son for orchestrating a scam under the guise of charity. He glanced at Mac, who gave him a small wave. Realizing he was outnumbered, Westbrook Sr. scowled. You'll regret this, Harding, he hissed, then climbed back into the sedan. As the car sped off, Mac exhaled. He's dangerous, Jeff. Don't underestimate him. I nodded, adrenaline surging. I won't. That afternoon, the atmosphere around my home felt electric, like a thundercloud about to unleash. I triple-checked the security cameras, expecting some retaliation from Westbrook's side. But the day passed quietly. Mackenzie got home from school, complaining about a quiz, and I did my best to act normal for her sake. We made dinner together, chicken casserole, and chatted about her friend group. Despite everything, I cherished that slice of normalcy. Around 9 p.m., as Mackenzie was finishing homework, I got a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. I answered cautiously. Hello? A frantic female voice. Jeffrey, it's Autumn. My pulse kicked up. Autumn, what's wrong? I'm in trouble, she stammered, sounding terrified. Colin found out I leaked documents. He's threatening to have me fired, blacklisted. Worse, I think he might hurt me. I stood up, heart racing. Where are you? In my car, parked near the event venue. I was supposed to help set up tomorrow's sponsor dinner, but oh God, I saw him with some men. They were talking about confronting me. She was clearly on the verge of panic. I can't go home. I think they know where I live. Stay calm, I said, fighting to keep my voice level. Drive somewhere safe, maybe a busy public area, then call the police. She sobbed. I'm scared. Can I come to your place? At least for tonight, until I figure out my next move? I hesitated, glancing at the ceiling, knowing Mackenzie was upstairs, but Autumn was risking her neck to blow the whistle on Alexis and Colin. Okay. Yes, come here. I'll keep you safe. She thanked me profusely, then hung up. I ran a hand through my hair, exhaling shakily. This was escalating fast. Autumn was being hunted by Colin's goons, or maybe Westbrook Sr.'s. The entire operation was teetering on the edge. I found Mackenzie in the living room, told her Autumn was coming because she felt unsafe. Mackenzie's eyes widened. So it's that serious? Yeah, I said grimly. But don't worry. I'll handle it. Autumn showed up half an hour later, her eyes red, hands shaking. She gripped a small suitcase, as if she'd packed in a hurry. Mackenzie greeted her with concern, offering a glass of water. Autumn sank onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. I'm so sorry to barge in like this. I have nowhere else. I closed the door behind her. It's okay. Tell me what happened. She took a moment to gather herself. After your meeting with the hospital board, Colin must have realized someone on Alexis's team leaked those documents. He cornered me at the venue, asked if I'd been talking to you. I lied, but I don't think he believed me. Then I overheard him talking to some men about finding proof it was me. They mentioned scaring me into silence. I clenched my jaw. Bastard. Autumn sniffed, tears welling up. He's never threatened me physically before, but those men he was with looked dangerous. I panicked and drove off. I can't go home. They might already be waiting there. Mackenzie sat beside her, patting her shoulder. You did the right thing coming here. Indeed, I said firmly. This house is secure. Cameras everywhere, plus I'm armed if need be. Autumn nodded, relief flickering in her eyes. Thank you. I led her to the guest room, told her to lock the door if it made her feel safer. She nodded, clutching her suitcase like a lifeline. In the hallway, Mackenzie pulled me aside. Dad, can you protect us from these people? I placed a hand on her shoulder. Yes, I promise. We've got evidence on our side, and we're not alone. The hospital board is involved now. If these guys try anything, it'll blow up in their faces. She exhaled, relaxing a bit. Okay, I trust you. Still, as I headed to bed, the weight of responsibility pressed down on me. I had Mackenzie and now Autumn under my roof, both threatened by Colin's mania. I slid a small pistol under my pillow for the first time in years, mind swirling with images of a potential home invasion. Let them come, I thought, shutting off my bedside lamp. Let them try to hurt us. This time, I wouldn't hesitate. The next morning, the air felt thick with anticipation. I checked in on Autumn, who admitted she barely slept. Mackenzie prepared for school, giving Autumn a timid smile of solidarity. Despite the tension, there was a strange sense of camaraderie under my roof, 3 people forced together by the actions of unscrupulous cheaters. After Mackenzie left for school, I found Autumn pacing in the living room, phone in hand. "Should I call the police about last night?" she asked, voice trembling. "They didn't do anything yet, but I'm terrified." I thought about it. It might be good to file a report, at least. That way, if they do harass you or if anything happens, there's a paper trail. She nodded. "Will you come with me? I don't want to go alone." I agreed without hesitation. Of course. We hopped in my truck and drove to the local police station. Autumn explained the situation to a bored-looking officer, describing how she feared retaliation from Colin Westbrook. The officer took notes, but seemed skeptical since no actual crime had occurred yet. I flashed a thin smile, explaining the backstory with the forging of sponsor documents, the hospital board's involvement, and the possibility that men were hired to intimidate her. Reluctantly, the officer filed a cautionary report. "If anything concrete happens, a threat, property damage, or assault, call us immediately," he said, handing Autumn a case number. It wasn't exactly satisfying, but at least there was some record now. We left the station and returned to my house. As we pulled into the driveway, a sleek black SUV sat at the curb, engine idling. My pulse spiked. "Stay here," I told Autumn, shifting the truck into park. But before I could step out, the SUV door opened and Alexis emerged. She stood on the sidewalk, glancing nervously at the tinted windows of the vehicle behind her, then at me. I climbed out of my truck, approaching her warily. "What are you doing here?" She wrapped her arms around herself. "We need to talk. It's urgent." I noticed a man in the SUV driver's seat watching us. Could be one of Westbrook's henchmen, or maybe a private driver. Either way, it put me on edge. Autumn cracked the passenger door open, peering out. Her eyes met Alexis's, and Alexis's expression darkened. "Autumn," she said tersely, "you're here too?" Autumn stepped out, squaring her shoulders. "I had nowhere else safe to go." Alexis let out a shaky breath. "Colin knows you leaked those documents. He's furious." Autumn glared. "He's a criminal. We did the right thing." Alexis turned her gaze to me, voice trembling. "Colin's father's on the warpath. He threatened to have me arrested today. He claims I acted alone in the fraud. That's why I came to warn you." I folded my arms, keeping an eye on that SUV. "Warn me about what?" She glanced nervously over her shoulder. "He's going to destroy any evidence he can before the hospital board completes their audit. He said if I won't help him, I should stay out of the way or face the consequences." A chill ran through me. So he's covering his tracks. Might come after Autumn, me even the board. Alexis nodded. Exactly. I'm sorry. I should have never let it get this far. Autumn scoffed. You were a big part of it, Alexis. Alexis's eyes brimmed with tears. I know. And now I'm paying for it. The tension was palpable. The man in the SUV cracked his window, presumably listening. I moved closer to Alexis, lowering my voice. Why come here in a Westbrook car? Isn't that risky? She bit her lip. I told them I was trying one last time to convince you to back off, but really I wanted to warn you. Thanks for the heads up, I muttered. But you should go. We're done here. She shook her head frantically. Jeffrey, I'm scared. I think Colin might do something drastic if he realizes he can't cover all this up. I stared at her, torn between anger and pity. What do you expect from me, Alexis? I'm not your protector anymore. You chose to leave. She swallowed. I know, but I'm still Mackenzie's mother, and if something happens to me, then that's the bed you made, Autumn interjected, stepping forward. You let us drown while you had your fling. Now you want redemption? Alexis blinked back tears. I can't fix the past, but I can try to do right now. Please just don't trust any meeting invites from Colin or his father. They might lure you into a trap. I nodded slowly. All right, understood. Anything else? She exhaled shakily. No, that's all I can do. If they ask, I'll tell them you refuse to cooperate. But be careful, Jeffrey. With that, she turned away, heading back to the SUV. I watched as the tinted window slid up, concealing the driver's face, and they sped off. Autumn let out a shaky breath. That was intense. I rubbed my temples. Yeah. She's playing a dangerous game, straddling both sides. But maybe her warning is genuine. Autumn stared after the disappearing SUV. Now what? Now we wait. We stay vigilant. The hospital board's audit is ongoing. If Westbrook tries to destroy evidence, maybe that's something we can catch or prove. She nodded, a worried crease in her brow. And if we can't prove it? I pressed my lips together. Then we rely on what we already have. The ledger, Alexis's confession, your statements. It might be enough to bury them, even if they scramble to cover their tracks. We went inside. Autumn paced the living room while I brewed coffee, my senses on high alert. The cameras showed no suspicious vehicles or people outside. For the moment, we were safe. How long do you think I can stay here? Autumn asked hesitantly, hugging herself. I shrugged. As long as you need until you feel safe. I know it's not ideal, but I'd rather you not go home if there's a real threat. She exhaled in relief. Thank you. A small beep on my phone made me check the notifications. Mac had texted, Board found major discrepancies. They're pulling financial records from the past 6 months. Could be more than 2 matters unaccounted for. They might call the police soon. My heart soared. $2 million? That was definitely big enough to trigger a full-blown investigation. I typed back, Understood. Keep me posted. I read the message out loud to Autumn. She gave a shaky smile. So they're cornered. That's probably why Alexis came fear. Exactly, I said. They know the net is closing in. Later that afternoon, I picked Mackenzie up from school. She was surprised to see Autumn in the passenger seat, but she slid into the back seat without question. I explained quietly that Autumn was laying low for safety. Mackenzie nodded, giving Autumn a sympathetic look. Back home, we tried to maintain a semblance of normal life. Mackenzie did homework. Autumn helped me cook spaghetti, occasionally asking if we saw any suspicious cars outside. But the evening passed without incident. Finally, around 9 p.m., the phone rang. I expected maybe Mac with another update, but the caller ID was blocked. I steeled myself, answering, "Hello?" A ragged male voice hissed, "You think you've won, Harding? Think again." My spine stiffened. "Colin!" He gave a humorless laugh. "Yes, it's me. Heard you've been playing hero with the hospital board. You're trying to ruin me, you son of a bitch." I forced my voice to remain calm, though adrenaline spiked in my veins. "You ruined yourself, Westbrook. Don't blame me." A crash sounded in the background on his end, like he was in a rage. "You have no idea what you're dealing with," he growled. "My father's influence goes beyond petty local boards. We'll bury you. Your daughter, that meddling co-worker, none of you will have a future." I clenched the phone, fury rising. "If you so much as look at my daughter, I'll end you." He snorted. "Big talk, Marine. But you can't protect them all the time. I give you one chance. Back off. Recant your allegations. Tell the board you lied. Or I make sure your life is destroyed." I glanced at the living room where Autumn and Mackenzie were flipping channels on the TV, oblivious to my conversation. My blood boiled. "No, Westbrook, I'm not backing off, not now, not ever." He let out a low curse. "Fine. Then you've signed your own death warrant. And that co-worker of Alexis's, Autumn? We'll make sure she regrets crossing us." "Try me," I growled, then hung up, heart hammering. Autumn must have sensed my tension because she came over, brow furrowed. "Jeffrey? What's wrong?" I forced a thin smile for Mackenzie's sake. "Let's talk in the kitchen." We stepped away from the living room. I told Autumn about Colin's phone call, how he specifically threatened her. She paled, hand flying to her mouth. "God, he's unhinged." "Yeah," I muttered. "But we won't let him intimidate us." She swallowed hard. "Maybe I should go to the police again. This time it's a direct threat." I nodded. "We should. First thing in the morning. Tonight, let's just stay on guard." We triple-checked the doors and windows, ensuring everything was locked. I showed Autumn where I kept a spare baseball bat near the front door, just in case. Mackenzie picked up on the tension. "Is everything okay, Dad?" I forced a reassuring nod. "Just a small issue with, well, Autumn got another threat, but we're handling it." She frowned, hugging herself. "I hate this. Why do these creeps have to do all this?" I put an arm around her. "Greed, power, arrogance, take your pick. But they won't win." She relaxed a fraction, then yawned. "I'm going to bed. Good night." We both said good night, watching her disappear upstairs. Autumn sat on the couch, arms wrapped around her knees. "I can't believe I'm in the middle of this. I was just an event planner who looked up to Alexis. Now, I'm a target." I sank down next to her, exhaling. "You did the right thing, Autumn. I'm sorry you're in danger, but your conscience is clean." She gave me a sad smile. "I guess so. Thank you for letting me stay." We sat in silence for a moment, the flicker of the lamp casting shadows on the wall. I recalled the feeling of being in a combat zone, knowing the enemy might strike at any moment, but not sure when or how. This was similar but worse, because it was personal. Eventually, Autumn said she'd try to sleep. I told her I'd stay up for a bit, make sure we were safe. She vanished into the guest room, quietly closing the door. Alone in the living room, I checked the cameras again. The street was dark and still. No sign of suspicious cars. I texted Mac a summary of Colin's threat. He replied, "Get a recording next time. We'll use it. Police might help." I set the phone aside, rolling my shoulders to ease the tension. Tomorrow we'd file another police report. Meanwhile, the hospital board was presumably moving forward with the audit. If all went well, official charges might follow soon. That would be the final blow to Colin's empire. I only hoped we could endure until then. For a long time that night, I just stood at the back window, staring out into the darkness behind my house, listening to my own heartbeat. The yard was illuminated only by a faint security light. The camera feed on my phone showed an empty street, no cars passing by, no silhouettes lurking in corners. Still, I couldn't shake the sensation of being watched like the Westbrooks had eyes everywhere. The phone call from Colin burned in my head, his voice twisted by anger, threatening me, threatening Autumn, threatening everyone I cared about. He wanted to break me, and maybe he assumed a barrage of intimidation would do the trick. But if there was one thing I'd learned in combat and in life, it's that threats rarely break people who've already stared death in the face. I turned from the window to see Autumn lingering in the living room, a blanket draped around her shoulders, gaze fixed on the TV that played some late-night show she wasn't really watching. Her eyes flicked to me and she offered a tight smile. "Couldn't sleep?" I asked, crossing the room. She shook her head. "Every time I close my eyes, I see him Colin telling me he'll ruin my life. I imagine those guys with him waiting outside my apartment, ready to who knows." My hands clenched at my sides, a surge of protectiveness flaring. "You're safe here, I promise. I'd never let them hurt you or Mackenzie." She nodded, sinking deeper into the couch cushions. "I know. Just everything about this is messed up. I was so naive, thinking Alexis was this caring mentor. Turns out she was forging documents for a real estate scam." I settled onto the armchair, leaning forward. "It's normal to feel betrayed. She betrayed me too, maybe in a different way. But it's betrayal all the same. Doesn't change the fact we both tried to see the best in her. That's not a crime." Autumn's expression wavered between sadness and gratitude. "Thanks for understanding." We lapsed into silence. On screen, a cheerful game show host was bantering with a contestant, the brightness of it all in stark contrast to the tension in our little living room. After a moment, I clicked off the TV, letting the hush settle. "Better to have quiet," I said softly, "so we can hear if anything's off." She nodded, pressing her lips together. I checked my watch. Nearly midnight. Mackenzie was asleep upstairs, presumably safe behind a locked door. Still, I felt an urge to do another perimeter check, to be absolutely sure no one was creeping around. But we had cameras, motion sensors. My training told me to trust them and remain calm. Finally, Autumn cleared her throat. If you don't mind, I'd like to stay up with you. If you're going to keep watch or something. I don't want to be alone in the guest room." I offered a reassuring smile. "Sure, we'll keep each other company for a while. You can crash later if you get tired." She curled her legs under her, glancing at her phone occasionally. "I texted my mom. She lives in another state. I told her I might come visit soon just to be safe, but I'm not sure I want to abandon the hospital board's case. I feel responsible. Like if I leave, I'm letting them off the hook." "I get that," I murmured, "but your safety comes first. If it escalates, I might ask you to leave town for your own protection. We can figure out how to proceed with the board without you physically here." Autumn's eyes flickered with uncertainty. "I'll think about it." We lapsed into a companionable quiet again. Outside, a light breeze rattled the branches of the oak tree in the front yard. My phone's camera feed stayed still. No sign of movement or headlights on the street. "Feels like the calm before the storm," Autumn said finally, voice hushed. I sighed. "Yeah, it does." The next morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee and the faint hum of quiet conversation. I'd dozed off sometime around 3 a.m., apparently. My neck was stiff from sleeping in the armchair. Rubbing my eyes, I wandered into the kitchen to find Autumn at the table. speaking softly to Mackenzie, who was dressed for school. "Morning, Dad," Mackenzie said, glancing over. Autumn gave me a small smile, holding up a mug of coffee. "I made fresh coffee, if you want some." I grunted a grateful thanks, pouring myself a cup. "Did you two sleep okay?" Mackenzie shrugged. "Yeah, I guess." Autumn was telling me about some of the events Mom used to plan. How she was always so detail-oriented. I sipped the hot coffee, a twinge of old memories tugging at me. Yeah, that was Alexis's specialty. She could plan a wedding or a fundraiser down to the last napkin fold. "Too bad she used those skills for something so messed up," Autumn said quietly. "If she'd stayed honest, she could have been so successful the right way." Mackenzie nodded, a flicker of sadness in her eyes. Then she stood, grabbing her backpack. "I gotta go or I'll miss the bus." "Love you, Dad." "Love you too," I murmured, ruffling her hair as she passed. She gave Autumn a quick wave and headed out. We listened to the front door shut. Then Autumn exhaled. I've never been around a teenager so resilient. She's handling all this better than I would at that age. I smiled faintly. She's strong. Stronger than her mom gave her credit for. Autumn tapped her mug. "So, what's the plan today?" I took another long sip, letting the caffeine jolt me awake. "We filed that new police report about Colin's direct threat last night. You come with me, provide a statement. After that, we wait to hear from Mac or the hospital board about the official charges." Her face tightened. "All right, let's do it." An hour later, we stood in the same police station we'd visited before. The same board officer was at the desk. Autumn explained that now there was a phone threat, naming her specifically, referencing violence. The officer's expression flickered with more concern. This time, an actual criminal threat is more serious than vague intimidation. He asked if we had proof. I'd ended the call quickly, so I hadn't recorded it. That made me grind my teeth. Another oversight. The officer wrote it all down anyway. "We'll keep this on file. If Mr. Westbrook or any associates contact you again with explicit threats, try to record or screenshot the conversation, or call us in real time so we can track it," he said, handing us an updated case number. Autumn's shoulders sagged, relief and resignation mingling. "Thank you, officer." As we turned to go, I caught a glimpse of a man in a suit stepping in behind us. Could have been just a local attorney or something, but my instincts prickled. He gave me a once-over, then tapped his phone. I led Autumn out, deciding not to dwell. Probably my paranoia working overtime. We drove home, where I pulled up behind Lance's truck in my driveway. My old Marine buddy was leaning against the tailgate, arms folded, scanning the street with a wary eye. I parked, hopped out, and gave him a nod. "Everything okay?" I asked. He inclined his head toward Autumn, who was climbing out of the passenger seat. "Just wanted to see if you folks needed an extra set of hands. Heard from Mac you got a direct threat last night." He eyed Autumn with a gentle concern. "You, must be Autumn, right?" She nodded shyly. "Yes. Thanks for coming." He offered a reassuring grin. "Any friend of Jeffrey's is a friend of mine, especially if it means stopping some scumbag from messing with you." I felt a wash of gratitude. "We just got back from the police station to file a report. Not sure how much good it'll do, but at least it's documented." Lance nodded. "Better than nothing. Mind if I install a couple more cameras on the side yard? I brought some gear." "Go for it," I said, leading him around back. Autumn trailed behind us, occasionally glancing over her shoulder as though expecting a black SUV to roar up any second. As Lance started unspooling cables and hooking up additional cams to the corner of the house, I explained that we suspected Westbrook might try to physically intimidate or sabotage evidence. Lance responded by triple-checking the perimeter, adjusting motion sensors, and hooking them into a central feed we could monitor from our phones. At one point, I heard Autumn mutter, "I can't believe this is my life now. High-tech security just so I can feel safe from an ex-lover of my coworker." I gave her a sympathetic look. "It's temporary. Once the board finalizes charges, the cops will clamp down on Colin. Then hopefully we can all breathe easier." She nodded, lips pressed thin. "I just hope it doesn't drag on too long." We spent the rest of the day on edge, but nothing happened. No suspicious cars, no threatening calls. By dinner time, Lance had finished the installs and parted ways, telling me to call if anything changed. Mackenzie returned from school, and we tried to have a normal evening meal. Grilled chicken, mashed potatoes, some half-hearted conversation about her upcoming dance. Afterward, Autumn retreated to the guest room to Skype with her mom, possibly discussing whether it was time to leave town. Mackenzie studied in her room. I cleaned up in the kitchen, then settled onto the couch, checking texts from Mac. No big updates, except the hospital board was finalizing the audit tomorrow. They might then request an official police investigation. That meant the net around Colin and, by extension, Alexis was tightening. I expected some form of retaliation. My best guess was that the Westbrooks, father and son, would either flee or ramp up intimidation, maybe even a physical confrontation. I just hoped we'd come out of it without anyone getting hurt. Around 9 p.m., my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I exchanged a glance with Autumn, who was passing through the living room, and quickly hit the record function on my second phone, an old phone I used as a spare. Then I answered on speaker. "Hello?" A deep, older male voice spoke. Not Colin, but it had the same arrogance. "Mr. Harding, this is Richard Westbrook, Colin's father." My stomach tensed. Autumn froze, eyes wide. Perfect. I was capturing the audio on my spare phone. "Yes," I said, keeping my voice level. He sighed as though disappointed in a rebellious child. "I understand you've been pushing certain allegations regarding my son's dealings with the hospital board. That's unfortunate. I was hoping we could resolve this quietly." I forced a bitter laugh. "Quiet resolution? Meaning I drop the accusations and let you keep the stolen money?" He gave a short, humorless chuckle. "You lack vision. My family is building something bigger than you can imagine. These charitable events are simply a stepping stone for real development. Growth. Prosperity. Why stand in the way?" "Because it's fraud," I snapped. "And your son threatened my family." A pause. "Colin can be impulsive, but I can assure you, the Westbrook name has enough influence to ensure your cooperation." Autumn hovered beside me, the phone's recorder capturing everything. I took a slow breath. "Is that your way of threatening me?" He cleared his throat. "It's an offer, Harding. I can make it worth your while if you publicly retract your claims. A substantial sum, enough to set your daughter up for college, maybe expand your little motorcycle business. Everyone wins." I felt a surge of revulsion. "And if I refuse?" His voice turned cold. "Then you've made an enemy you can't afford. We will bankrupt you, discredit you, you'll lose everything. I'd hate to see your daughter's future ruined because you couldn't see reason." Fury coiled in my chest, but I forced an even tone. "I'm not for sale." A short silence, then he exhaled. "This is your final opportunity. Once the authorities get involved, it's out of my hands. They'll bury Alexis under the entire fiasco. She'll go to prison, maybe for years. Are you truly so vindictive you'd let the mother of your child rot just to prove a point?" I grit my teeth. "Her choices, her consequences. Don't you dare put that on me." He let out a low, condescending hum. "So be it. You'll regret this." A click, and the line went dead. Autumn stared at me. shaking her head. He actually tried to bribe you. I held up my spare phone, which had recorded every word. And now we have that bribery attempt on tape. She sank onto the couch, letting out a breathy laugh of disbelief. These people are insane. I slid the second phone into my pocket carefully. Insanely arrogant. This might be the final nail if we hand it to Mac. It proves they tried to buy me off plus threatened me and Alexis. Autumn shook her head, gaze flicking to the quiet hallway that led to Mackenzie's room. What if they escalate? I sat beside her, mind racing. We stay vigilant. If they do escalate, it'll be out of desperation. The official police inquiry is likely days away. Once it's rolling, they'll have bigger problems than us. She nodded, exhaling. I just can't believe Alexis got tangled with a family like that. We fell silent, the weight of Westbrook Sr.'s words pressing down. He'd put the onus on me to save Alexis by backing off, painting me as vindictive for refusing. But that was a manipulation, plain and simple. She'd forged documents, threatened to blackmail me as well. She wasn't innocent. Still, deep in the corners of my mind, a small voice whispered that she was Mackenzie's mother. She used to be the woman I loved. The conflict gnawed at me, but I couldn't bend now. The cost was too high. If I caved, I'd be enabling them to walk free, with Autumn also left in danger. The only path was forward, no matter how ugly it got. An hour later, after sending the audio file to Mac, I double-checked the locks and cameras. The house felt like a fortress, but also like a cage. I lingered by the living room window, scanning the dark street. Nothing. Maybe Westbrook Sr. thought one call would handle it. Autumn joined me, arms folded. We're in it now, she murmured. We've been in it for a while, I corrected gently. But yeah, the stakes are higher. She parted her lips to say something else, then shook her head. You know what? We'll handle it. Somehow. I nodded. Yeah, we will. 2 days later, Mac called me with the update we'd been waiting for. The hospital board had finished their internal audit and discovered over $2 million in fraudulent or missing funds connected to Alexis's event planning records. The official stance was that strong evidence of embezzlement existed. They would refer the matter to the district attorney, who would almost certainly open a criminal investigation. I felt a rush of vindication. Colin and his father's empire was about to face a reckoning. Alexis might go down too unless she flipped on them with concrete evidence. That was her choice. I couldn't save her from it. Autumn was pacing in the living room when I hung up. Well? She asked anxiously. I allowed a slight grin. It's happening. The board's pushing it to the DA. This is real now. She let out a relieved laugh, pressing her palms to her cheeks. I can't believe it. Finally, they're going to be held accountable. Yep, but we should brace ourselves. Once this hits the DA's desk, the Westbrooks will know they're out of time. They might lash out. Her smile faded. Right. Lance dropped by with groceries that afternoon, under the guise of restocking my fridge, but really to check on security. He listened intently as I filled him in on the impending DA referral. Expect a cornered animal, he said, scanning my yard through the window. They might come at you physically, or they might try some sleazy legal trick. Could even skip town if they think the DA's serious. I exhaled, nodding. We're ready. Either way. Mackenzie, overhearing from the kitchen, spoke up. Dad, do you think they'll come here? Or try to take me hostage or something? Her voice quivered slightly, though she attempted to sound tough. My heart twisted. Sweetheart, I won't let that happen. Lance and I are on alert, and we have more than enough security to ward off any goons. But if you ever sense something off, Call me immediately, okay? She nodded. Okay. That evening, news broke in local media that the hospital board uncovered large-scale fraud. They didn't name names yet, but sources close to the investigation hinted at involvement by a prominent real estate developer and an event planner. People who followed local gossip could guess that developer had to be Colin Westbrook. The rumor mill churned swiftly. I watched the local evening news from my living room couch, eyes fixed on the anchor. Autumn and Mackenzie sat with me, equally tense. The hospital board confirms they've forwarded evidence of financial impropriety to the district attorney's office. While official statements remain vague, insiders suggest multiple individuals could face charges relating to donation misappropriation, the anchor said. Autumn pressed her hands together, breath shaky. That's it, no turning back. Mackenzie glanced at me. Mom's going to be on the news too eventually, isn't she? I nodded gravely. Likely. She pursed her lips, tears glistening in her eyes. I can't imagine what that'll look like. I squeezed her shoulder. We'll deal with it, one day at a time. The next morning, I woke to a text from Alexis. Call me. I'm desperate, please. I stared at the phone, debating. Finally, I decided to see what she wanted. I dialed, stepping out into the garage for privacy. She answered in a trembling voice. Jeffrey, oh God, everything's falling apart. I exhaled, quiet anger simmering. What did you expect, Alexis? You participated in a felony. She let out a choked sob. I know, but Colin's father is telling me they'll frame me as the mastermind, that I used my position as an event planner to funnel the money. He says he'll produce forged emails and everything to pin it on me. I'm so screwed. A pang hit my chest. Despite her betrayal, hearing her so terrified felt unnerving. Have you talked to your own lawyer? She sniffled. I can't afford one of the big firms, and all my savings are locked up in these so-called investments Colin convinced me to make. I have next to nothing, Jeff. They threatened me, said if I speak to the authorities, they'll make me regret it. I clenched my jaw. So you want me to swoop in and fix it? A shaky pause. I don't deserve it. I know. But if you have any decency left for what we used to have, maybe you can talk to the DA, tell them I wasn't the ringleader. It took every ounce of restraint not to blow up. You realize you cheated on me, threatened me, and lied to me. You want a personal favor now? Are you serious? She let out a trembling exhale. I know it's a huge ask, but I have nothing else. I'm at the end of my rope. I swallowed the lump in my throat, remembering how, once upon a time, I loved this woman wholeheartedly. I can't wave a magic wand. The only thing you can do is come clean, volunteer evidence against Colin and his father. If you're honest, the DA might cut you a deal. That's how this works. She whimpered. But they said they'd ruin my life if I snitch. You already ruined it by going along with them, I said bluntly. Your best shot is cooperating with the law. That's the only way. A few seconds of silence. Then, with a shaky voice, she asked, Would you at least help me talk to the DA, introduce me to your attorney? I'm so scared, Jeff. I pinched the bridge of my nose, frustration mounting. I'll talk to Mac, see what he recommends. But I'm not guaranteeing anything. If he says it's best to let you face this alone, that's what we'll do. She let out a ragged sigh. Thank you. Even just having a shot is something. Then she hung up. I stood in the garage for a long moment, phone in hand, conflicting emotions swirling. Alexis was asking for help, but my logical side screamed she deserved the legal consequences. My heart ached for Mackenzie's sake. Having her mother in prison for a long stretch would be devastating. If there was a way to lighten the blow, maybe I should consider it. Finally, I dialed Mac. He listened patiently as I recounted Alexis's plea. From a legal standpoint, he said, the best thing for her is to approach the DA voluntarily, state she's ready to cooperate, hand over any incriminating evidence about Colin and his father. That might get her a plea deal. She doesn't necessarily need you for that. Yeah, but she's scared, clueless. She wants me to facilitate. Mac paused. I can speak to her if you want, but no illusion she's going to face charges. The best we can do is push for leniency if she supplies proof that implicates the Westbrooks more deeply. I mulled it over. Should I do that, or just let her crash and burn? He sighed. That's your call, Jeff. Morally speaking, maybe we save her from a lengthy prison term if it benefits Mackenzie. Strictly from a revenge standpoint, you could let her drown. But do you want to be that guy? I grimaced. Yeah, I don't know. I'll think about it. Mac's tone was gentle. Your daughter's already dealing with heartbreak. Maybe seeing her mom locked away for a decade isn't ideal. If Alexis flips on Colin, it might shorten her sentence significantly. That helps everyone, right? I stared at the ground. You're right. I'll talk to her. Thanks, Mac. After that call, I returned to the house. Autumn was rummaging in the kitchen for breakfast. I told her about Alexis's request, the possibility of a plea deal. She nodded, lips pursed. If it helps sink Colin faster, I'm all for it. What about your feelings on Alexis? I asked, carefully. She pulled you into this, mentored you in forgery, basically. Do you feel like she deserves a break? Autumn snorted softly. Part of me wants her to rot, but I also know she got manipulated by Colin's sweet talk. She's definitely guilty, but Colin's the one who orchestrated the entire scam. If letting her cooperate means nailing him, that's okay by me. I exhaled. All right, then. I'll let Mac handle it. If Alexis is truly sincere, she'll come forward. We let the conversation drop, focusing on everyday tasks. Mackenzie left for school, we checked cameras. Lance texted me about potentially dropping by again. Another day in the bizarre new normal of living under siege. That afternoon, Alexis herself appeared at my doorstep. I'd only had a short text exchange with her after speaking to Mac, telling her we'd coordinate. But apparently, she couldn't wait. Through the camera, I saw her standing on my porch, eyes ringed with exhaustion. She carried a small folder in her hands. I allowed her inside cautiously, nodding to Autumn, who lingered in the living room, watchful. Mackenzie was still at school, thankfully. We stood in the hallway, tension thick. You came in broad daylight, I said, arching a brow. Aren't Colin's men watching you? She shrugged, voice trembling. I don't care anymore. I have these. She held up the folder. Printouts of emails, text logs from when Colin first pitched the idea of funneling donations into his developments. My old laptop had backups. My pulse quickened. That's the smoking gun you should hand over to the DA. She nodded, tears brimming. Yes, I realize that. But I don't know how to approach them. I'm terrified. If the Westbrooks find out I took these, they'll come after me. Autumn stepped forward, arms folded. They're already going after everyone, Alexis. Might as well do the right thing now. Alexis stared at Autumn for a moment. A flicker of shame crossed her face. I'm sorry, Autumn. I treated you so badly. I never wanted you to be in danger. Autumn's expression softened a little. You told me to keep quiet or risk losing my job. You said we'd all make money in the end. You made me feel guilty for questioning it. Alexis swallowed. I know. I was wrong. So wrong. I cleared my throat, not wanting to dwell on their personal dynamic. Alexis, if you're ready to make a statement, I can set up a meeting with Mac. He'll guide you to the DA's office properly. She nodded eagerly, clutching the folder to her chest. Please, I don't want to go to prison for decades, Jeff. I'll do anything to show them Colin's the real mastermind. My jaw tightened. He might still be. But your cooperation helps, sure. A tear rolled down her cheek. Thank you. I gestured toward the kitchen table. Sit. Let's get Mac on speakerphone. As she sat, Autumn hovered near the doorway, arms folded. I dialed Mac, told him Alexis was here with physical evidence. He said he could arrange a direct handoff to the ADA within the next 24 hours. Tell her not to speak to anyone else, Mac advised. Especially not the Westbrooks. We'll coordinate. She can come with me to the courthouse tomorrow. Keep that evidence safe. I relayed the message, and Alexis agreed with trembling relief. We hung up, leaving an awkward silence among the three of us. Finally, Alexis looked up, voice small. Jeff, can I see Mackenzie? I tensed. She's not home yet. Do you really want to drag her into this drama again? Her lips quivered. She's my daughter. I need to tell her how sorry I am that I'm trying to fix what I did. Autumn gave me a look as if to say, up to you. I hesitated, memories of how Mackenzie reacted to her mother's presence flooding my mind. But maybe it was time. When she gets home, I'll ask if she wants to see you. It's her choice, okay? Alexis nodded, eyes flooding with gratitude. Yes. Thank you. We killed time for about an hour, tension coiling in the air. Alexis sipped water, glancing around as if seeing the house anew. She asked quietly about changes in decor, about my new security cameras. Autumn mostly avoided conversation, rummaging in the kitchen. I tried to remain cordial, but reserved. Finally, Mackenzie's bus dropped her off down the street. I caught a glimpse of her walking up the driveway through the front window. Alexis stood, wringing her hands anxiously. I intercepted Mackenzie at the door, pulling her aside gently. Your mom's here. She wants to talk to you, but you don't have to if you're uncomfortable. Mackenzie's eyes flashed with conflicting emotions. She bit her lip. I'll see her, she whispered. Might as well hear what she has to say. I squeezed her shoulder. Okay. We'll be in the living room. If at any point you want out, just say the word. She nodded. We walked in, and Alexis rose from the couch. The moment Mackenzie locked eyes with her mother, tears welled up on both sides. For a second, neither spoke. Then Alexis rushed forward, arms outstretched. Mackenzie hesitated, then let her mother hug her, albeit stiffly. Alexis sobbed into her shoulder. I'm so sorry, baby. I messed up so badly. Mackenzie blinked back tears, gently pushing away after a moment. Why did you do it, Mom? Was Dad not enough? Was I not enough? Alexis's face crumpled. It was never about you or your dad not being enough. It was me, my greed, my craving for excitement, for money. I let Colin trick me into thinking we'd all benefit, that I'd become this big-shot event planner. But I betrayed you both in the process. Mackenzie wiped her eyes. Do you even love us anymore? You just left. Alexis closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. I do love you. I was blinded by my own ambition. I know words can't fix it. But I'm here now, trying to undo the damage. Mackenzie's breath hitched. She glanced at me. I gave a tiny nod, staying out of it. It was her moment. I hate what you did, Mackenzie whispered, voice trembling. But a part of me still loves you, because you're my mom. I can't trust you. Alexis let out a wounded sound. I understand. I'll work to earn it back if I can. Silence stretched. Autumn hovered in the hall, giving them space. I stayed near the edge of the living room, ready to intervene if needed. Finally, Mackenzie cleared her throat. So what now? Alexis took a shuddering breath. I'm going to the DA with evidence against Colin. I'll probably be charged with something too, but maybe less severe if I cooperate. I might go to prison for a while. Mackenzie tensed, tears brimming. Prison. God. Alexis gently reached for her hand, but Mackenzie pulled away. I'm sorry, Alexis murmured, voice thick. I wish I could spare you this, but I have to own what I did. Mackenzie stared at the floor, a tear sliding down her cheek. When do you go? Tomorrow I'm meeting Dad's attorney, then we'll see. It's all happening fast. Alexis forced a shaky smile. But at least I'll be telling the truth. My daughter said nothing, but I could see the heartbreak etched on her face. Alexis let out a ragged breath, turning to me. Thank you, Jeffrey, for letting me talk to her. I gave a curt nod, emotions swirling. Just keep your word and turn that evidence in. No games. She clutched the folder. I will. I promise. She left soon after, climbing into a beat-up sedan I hadn't seen before, probably borrowed, to avoid the Westbrooks' surveillance. Mackenzie retreated to her room, sobbing quietly. I felt a mix of anger and pity swirling in my gut, the lines of betrayal cutting deep. Autumn and I sat in the living room, the clock ticking loudly, a sense of inevitability filling the air. Tomorrow, Alexis would hand over her evidence, presumably flipping on Colin. Then, the DA's office would have everything it needed to bring down the entire ring of fraud. What none of us could know was whether Colin or his father would try one last desperate move. For now, I just prayed we were prepared for whatever that might be. The morning of Alexis's DA appointment dawned cloudy and cold, a fitting backdrop for the tension coursing through the house. Autumn hovered in the kitchen, sipping herbal tea and glancing at the clock every few minutes. Mackenzie shuffled around listlessly, bag slung over her shoulder, dreading school. I felt the weight of what was about to happen, an unspoken sense that the entire house was bracing for another storm. Shortly after 8 a.m., Mac texted me. Leaving for courthouse now. Alexis is en route with the docs. I read it aloud to Autumn, who exhaled shakily. Let's hope she doesn't back out. She won't, I said, my voice firmer than I felt. She's too scared of facing the Westbrooks alone. Mackenzie came downstairs, dressed for school, but with a noticeable slump in her posture. So Mom's turning herself in? I gave a tight nod. She's going in to talk to the assistant DA. She might not get arrested right away, but it'll start the official process. She swallowed hard, gaze distant. This is so surreal. I gently squeezed her shoulder. I know, kiddo, but it's the best way forward for everyone. She gave me a shaky nod, then headed out for the bus. Autumn watched her go, lips pressed in a thin line. She's so brave for a kid. I agreed softly, memory flicking to all the ways Mackenzie had shown resilience far beyond her years. Then I turned to the matter at hand. We wait for Mac's update. Meanwhile, keep an eye on the cameras. The Westbrooks might sense betrayal if they've been tracking Alexis. Autumn's eyes flicked to the monitors. Got it. Around 10, I got a text from Mac. Handed docs to ADA. Alexis gave statement. They want more from her, but looks promising. She might be booked soon. The Westbrooks are their main target. I exhaled a wave of tension. The net was closing. Now, if only we could avoid any last-minute sabotage. An hour later, Autumn and I were discussing the possibility of her relocating out of state once the dust settled, just to be safe, when the phone rang. The number was unknown again. I picked up, instantly pressing record on my old phone. Hello? The voice was ragged and furious. Colin. You traitorous bastard, he snarled. You convinced Alexis to sell me out, didn't you? I forced a grim calm. She made her own choice, Westbrook. She handed over everything, he spat. Emails, texts. The DA is building a case. My father's pulling strings. But we don't know if it's enough. This is on your head. I let out a hollow laugh. No, it's on yours. You masterminded the fraud. You threatened me, threatened Autumn. You destroyed your own house of cards. He let out a string of curses. You think you've won? Think again. I'm not going down without taking someone with me. My spine tingled. Is that more threats? A sick chuckle. You bet it is. I want you to hurt, Harding. You took Alexis from me, turned her against me. If I can't have her, no one can. Or maybe I'll just hurt the daughter you love so much. See how you like that? My blood ran cold. If you so much as come near Mackenzie, he interrupted with a sneer. You'll what? Kill me? You'll be the one in prison then. Maybe that's a fair trade for you. Let's see if you can stop me. The line went dead. My heart hammered. I looked at Autumn, who'd heard enough to see the alarm on my face. What happened? She asked, voice taut. I replayed it for her, the threat about Mackenzie. She gasped, face paling. We need to get her somewhere safe, right now. I nodded curtly, mind already racing. I'll go grab her from school, bring her home, or maybe we hide her at Lance's place or a friend's house. Somewhere Colin wouldn't think to look. Autumn rubbed her arms. Yes, good idea. I texted Mac quickly. Colin threatening violence, checking on Mackenzie. Then I dashed out the door, leaving Autumn to keep watch at the house. Driving like a bat out of hell, I sped toward Mackenzie's school. My phone pinged with Mac's reply. Call the police. They can assign protection. But I couldn't wait on that. I had to ensure Mackenzie was safe this instant. The school was only a few miles away. I screeched into the parking lot, ignoring the startled looks from staff. Inside, I found the front office, identified myself as Mackenzie's father, and asked for her to be pulled from class immediately. The receptionist eyed me suspiciously. Is there an emergency, Mr. Harding? Yes, a family matter that can't wait, I said briskly, heart thumping. She made a quick phone call, and minutes later Mackenzie appeared, confusion etched on her face. Dad, what's wrong? I guided her aside, voice low. Colin threatened you specifically. I'm not taking chances. I'm bringing you home, or maybe somewhere else safe until we figure this out. Her eyes went wide, fear and anger mixing. He threatened me? I clenched my jaw. Yes, so let's go. I'll explain on the way. She nodded, pale but resolute, and we hurried out of the school. As we reached my truck, I scanned the parking lot, half expecting a shady figure or black SUV. Nothing seemed out of place. We climbed in, and I locked the doors, pulling out quickly. You okay? I asked once we were on the main road. She took a shaky breath. Scared, but yeah, I hate him. Me too, I muttered, glancing at the rearview mirror for any sign of a tail. Still nothing. You're going to be fine, though. We'll keep you safe. She nodded, gripping her phone tight. Dad, how long is this going to go on? As long as it takes for the DA to bring charges and for the Westbrooks to realize they can't intimidate us. It won't be forever. She sank back in her seat, tears brimming again. I can't believe someone would threaten me just to hurt you. My heart squeezed. Some people are that twisted, especially when they're cornered. We reached home safely, Mackenzie rushing inside. Autumn exhaled, relieved to see her, then locked the door behind us. I filled them both in on the drive back, how the school was calm, no sign of trouble, but I refused to let my guard down. I texted Lance, we might need backup. Colin threatened Mackenzie directly. He replied almost instantly, on my way. Within half an hour, Lance arrived, stepping inside with a grim expression. He carried a duffel bag slung over his shoulder, likely containing extra security gear. I'll keep watch with you tonight, he said. No one's getting near this house. I nodded, gratefully. Thanks, brother. Autumn and Mackenzie hung together in the living room, trying to do something normal like watch a sitcom, but both were jumpy. I retreated with Lance to the workshop, where we discussed potential scenarios: a break-in, a drive-by threat, or even an attempt to lure Mackenzie out. We decided to stay in shifts through the night, one person monitoring cameras, another patrolling the perimeter periodically. I set up a small rotation schedule, determined not to let the night pass unguarded. As dusk fell, tension wrapped the house like a thick fog. Mackenzie insisted on doing her homework at the kitchen table so she could see me or Lance at all times. Autumn prepared a simple dinner: sandwiches, chips. Nobody had the appetite for anything fancy. Around 8 p.m., my phone buzzed with a call from Mac. "Jeff, I just heard from the DA's office. Alexis gave them everything. They're finalizing a warrant for Colin's arrest." "Possibly, as soon as tomorrow morning." A surge of relief and adrenaline. "That's good news, but he might lash out before that." Mac's tone was grave. "Yeah, exactly. Be extra careful. If he's threatening your daughter, he might do something stupid tonight. Hang tight and call the police, if anything happens." I thanked him, hung up, and relayed the news to the others. We were on the cusp of a warrant for Colin. That meant his window to retaliate was closing fast. He had every reason to strike now, if he was going to at all. Lance clapped my shoulder. "Then let's make sure we're ready." We triple-checked the locks, tested the motion sensors, ensured the cameras were functioning. I armed myself discreetly, pistol in my waistband, extra magazines stashed in a kitchen drawer. I prayed I wouldn't need them, but better safe than sorry. Autumn coaxed Mackenzie upstairs, urging her to at least try to get some rest. Mackenzie resisted, insisting she wouldn't sleep anyway. But eventually she gave in, probably to avoid showing fear in front of us. We promised her we'd be vigilant. By 10 p.m., the house was quiet except for the low hum of cameras. Lance and I took positions. He in the living room near the front windows, me in the kitchen, which gave a view of the side yard and back door. Autumn lingered in the hallway, phone in hand, scanning the feed on a tablet. The minutes dragged into hours. Midnight came and went with no sign of trouble. My adrenaline spiked and ebbed in waves, my mind replaying Colin's hateful words, imagining him lurking in the shadows. But nothing stirred. At 2 a.m., Lance and I swapped positions. He took the kitchen, I moved to the living room. I gazed out the window at the empty street, the lamp casting harsh halos on the pavement. My eyelids grew heavy, but I forced myself to stay alert. Suddenly, a beep from the camera feed made me stiffen. Autumn's voice came from behind me. "Motion on the side yard." I whipped around to see her staring at the tablet. "Which camera?" I hissed. She tapped the screen. "Camera 2, near the fence. Something just moved." Lance rushed over from the kitchen, scanning the feed. Sure enough, a dark shape flitted near the fence line. Too large to be an animal. My heart kicked into overdrive. "I'll check it out," Lance muttered, heading toward the back door. I stopped him. "Hang on. Let's see if we can spot them on the side camera. No need to rush out and risk a shootout. We have vantage from the window near the workshop." He nodded, pivoting to the workshop door. Autumn followed us, her breath shaky, gripping the tablet. Mackenzie, awakened by the commotion, crept down the stairs wide-eyed. "Dad, what's happening?" I held up a hand. "Stay back, sweetie. Possibly someone's outside." Her face paled, but she silently complied. Lance cracked open the workshop's side window. We peered out into the faintly lit yard. At first, nothing. Then a flicker of movement near the fence, a figure in dark clothing, crouched low, creeping closer. Autumn whispered, "Should we call the police?" I nodded. "Yes, do it now." She hurried to dial 911. Lance gripped my shoulder. "We can confront them if they get too close." but let's see if they approach the house. The figure advanced, inching along the fence, apparently trying to find a blind spot in the cameras. But we had the entire perimeter covered. A moment later, the intruder seemed to realize this, backing off slightly. Then, to our shock, two more shapes emerged from the corner of the yard. A trio of them. I cursed under my breath. They brought back up. Lance tensed. They could be armed. Let's hold our ground inside. We heard Autumn's hushed voice. Yes, 3 intruders in the yard address is 145. They're moving around. Might be armed. Hurry, please. She rejoined us, phone pressed to her ear. Cops are on the way, she whispered. Mackenzie hovered near the workshop door, trembling. I gestured for her to stay low behind a stack of crates. The intruders advanced again, now near the side window. I glimpsed their faces under the faint yard light masked, but they had the build of grown men. One carried a long object, maybe a crowbar or bat. My pulse thundered. Suddenly, a glint of steel caught my eye. The tallest intruder raised what looked like a gun, pointing it at the side window. Lance and I ducked. A muffled pop-pop sounded, glass shattering overhead. Mackenzie screamed, clapping a hand over her mouth. Shit! Lance hissed, dragging me down. We crouched, adrenaline roaring in our veins. They'd opened fire, albeit with some small-caliber weapon. A bullet had cracked the top of the workshop window. Autumn shrieked. They're shooting! I forced calm. Everybody stay down. Cops are coming. Another volley of pop, 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 bullets punching holes in the workshop siding. My mind raced. These guys intended to do real harm. Maybe they planned to flush us out. But I wasn't about to cower if they tried to enter. A second later, I heard footsteps pounding on the grass, heading for the back door. The doorknob rattled violently. Lance shot me a meaningful look. We moved quietly to the interior door, guns drawn, ready to defend ourselves if they kicked it in. The intruder outside yanked on the handle, cursing under his breath. I heard muffled voices. It's locked! Break it down! Then heavy pounding. My heart hammered. Mackenzie and Autumn huddled behind a storage shelf, eyes wide with terror. I shouted through the door, "The police are on their way! Back off!" In response, more gunshots hammered the door. Splinters flew. A bullet whizzed by, embedding in the workshop wall. My rage flared. If they got inside, we'd have to defend ourselves. Lance and I exchanged nods, each pointing our weapons at the door, bracing for possible forced entry. But before they could breach, distant sirens wailed. The intruders froze. I heard one hiss, "Shit, cops." Then the footsteps receded, frantic pounding of shoes on grass. We risked a glance out the shattered window, catching a glimpse of them vaulting the fence into the neighboring yard. Autumn sobbed in relief. They're running. A minute later, red and blue lights flooded the street, multiple police cruisers screeching to a halt out front. Shouts rang out, flashlights slicing through the dark. Lance and I lowered our guns, carefully stepping out to meet the officers, arms raised to show we weren't a threat. The lead officer barked, "Police! Is anyone hurt?" "Not injured," I called back, voice shaky. 3 armed men just fled through the backyard. Shots were fired. They hustled around the property, a few jumping fences. Others took statements from me, Lance, Autumn, and a trembling Mackenzie. In the swirl of chaos, we explained how it was likely connected to the Westbrooks' threats. The officers collected bullet casings, photographed the broken window and door, then spread out in search. We huddled in the living room afterward, waiting for updates. Autumn shook uncontrollably, Lance's hand on her shoulder. Mackenzie clung to me, face buried in my chest. The entire place smelled of gunpowder and fear. Finally, an officer returned, shaking his head. No sign of them. They must have had a getaway car. We'll keep patrolling the area, but from your description, these guys were pro, or at least well prepared. Did you get a look at their faces? I grimaced. They wore masks, The tall one had a gun, used it on the window and door. He jotted notes. Okay. If you recall any details, let us know. We'll see if any neighbors have security footage that might show their vehicle. We nodded numbly. Another officer approached me quietly. Sir, this could have ended badly. You might want to find a safer location for your family until we can get these suspects in custody. I glanced at Mackenzie, who was still trembling. My house had become a war zone. He was right. But if the DA was about to arrest Colin anyway, maybe we just needed to hold out a bit longer. My phone buzzed Mac. I answered, summarizing the attack in brief. He cursed softly, then said the DA planned to issue a warrant for Colin first thing in the morning, suspecting he orchestrated or financed the hit. Can you get out of town for the night? Mac asked. The police can't guarantee your safety from a drive-by. I glanced around. I'll talk to Lance and see if we can crash somewhere they wouldn't look. Mac paused. Let me know. Stay safe. I hung up. My mind spun. Where could we go at this hour with Mackenzie and Autumn in tow? A hotel might be risky. Lance suggested his sister's farmhouse a few miles out, a place rarely used. It had no direct link to my name or Autumn's. That might suffice for a night. By 4 a.m., we'd packed essentials into my truck, leading a shaken Mackenzie and Autumn outside under police watch. Lance followed in his own car. The cops promised to patrol the neighborhood, but we all knew we couldn't risk staying. The farmhouse was a modest single-story building, farmland, stretching around it in all directions. Lance's sister was out of state, so the place stood empty, though it had basic furniture and running water. We arrived just before dawn, exhausted and rattled. Inside, we locked up, checked windows, and collapsed into old chairs. Mackenzie dozed on a worn couch, Autumn silently curled on an armchair, knees tucked to her chest. Lance and I sat at the kitchen table, guns kept close. We'd survived the night, but the tension remained. In a few hours, the DA would presumably sign Colin's warrant, hopefully shutting down his last-ditch violence. But after seeing how far his men were willing to go, I wasn't taking anything for granted. I rubbed my eyes, grit in every blink. We'll wait here. See what happens with that arrest. Then maybe we can breathe. Lance nodded, hand resting lightly on his pistol. I'm not sleeping until I hear he's in cuffs. The next morning arrived with a pale sunrise over the farmland. My back ached from catnapping in a rickety kitchen chair. Mackenzie stirred awake on the couch, blinking at the unfamiliar surroundings. Autumn roused from her armchair, eyes swollen with tears and exhaustion. Lance brewed instant coffee, the strong, bitter smell cutting through the stagnant air. He quietly handed cups around, each of us sipping like it was precious fuel. Nobody said much what was there to say. We were safe for the moment, but on edge for the final blow. Around 8 a.m., my phone rang. Mac's name. I answered, bracing. Hey! His voice carried a mix of relief and urgency. Jeff, the warrant was signed an hour ago. Police went to apprehend Colin at his condo. He wasn't there. Seems he fled. A spike of cold fear knifed through me. He's gone? Yeah. The condo was tossed. Some clothes missing. No sign of him. His father claims he doesn't know where Colin is, which might be a lie. The DA's got an APB out for him, suspecting he's armed and dangerous. I swallowed hard. So he could still come for us. That's why I'm calling, Mac said grimly. Law enforcement is focusing on known associates, checking flight records, but he might try to skip the country or hide. Until he's caught, you're still at risk. I looked around at the old farmhouse walls, adrenaline pounding. We're at Lance's sister's place, about an hour from town. Should we stay here? Probably. I'd also consider a formal request for police protection, but they're stretched. Up to you. I hung up, turning to the others, face drawn. Colin's on the run. They don't know where he is. Autumn swallowed. He could come here. Mackenzie paled, hugging her knees to her chest. I'm so done with this. Lance set his jaw. We have enough land around here to see him coming. We'll keep watch. If he shows his face, he'll regret it. I nodded, though dread coiled in my stomach. A cornered, desperate Colin was the most dangerous kind. The difference was we wouldn't be caught off guard again. This time, we were prepared. Hours dragged by, the farmhouse eerily quiet except for occasional crows cawing outside. I tried distracting Mackenzie with a deck of old playing cards, though neither of us had the energy for real cheer. Autumn scrolled the internet for news updates. Lance took a walk around the perimeter every so often, scanning the farmland. By mid-afternoon, a flurry of texts from Mac. FBI might get involved. Colin's father claims ignorance. Alexis is cooperating further, but she's being processed, might get bail. She asked about you and Mackenzie. I relayed none of this to Mackenzie, for now she already had enough on her mind. Instead, we soldiered on, waiting for any sign that Colin had been found. Late afternoon gave way to dusk. Lance was on the porch, leaning against a post, rifle in hand, scanning the horizon. Autumn and Mackenzie were inside, rummaging for something resembling dinner from the dusty pantry. I paced the porch, phone in my pocket, checking it every few minutes. Nothing new. The sky turned crimson with the setting sun, painting the farmland in a somber glow. Another uneasy night ahead. Suddenly, the rumble of an engine in the distance caught my ear. A swirl of dust rose on the dirt road leading up to the farmhouse. My chest tightened. Lance shouldered his rifle, eyes narrow. Could be a cop, he muttered, or a random driver. The vehicle drew closer, a black SUV. My blood ran cold. Lance cursed under his breath. That's not good. We retreated inside, locking the door. I shouted for Autumn and Mackenzie, telling them to get down. Autumn rushed into the living room, eyes wide. Mackenzie clutched her phone, face pale as a ghost. We crouched by the front window, peering through a gap in the curtains. The SUV rolled to a stop about 50 yards from the farmhouse. The windows were tinted, no plate visible in the poor light. A figure stepped out tall, broad-shouldered. Even at a distance, something about his stance screamed, "Colin!" My stomach clenched. Another figure got out on the passenger side, possibly one of his hired thugs. They slowly approached, guns in hand, no attempt at stealth this time. They must have realized we'd see them. My pulse thundered. Lance glanced at me, jaw set. We can hold them off, but careful with Mackenzie here. I nodded, turning to Autumn. Take Mackenzie, get to the back bedroom, barricade yourselves. If we get overrun, escape through the window, run into the fields, we'll hold them. Tears sprang to Autumn's eyes, but she nodded bravely. Mackenzie let out a stifled sob. Dad, I'm scared. I know, baby, I whispered, hugging her tight. We'll protect you. Go now. They hurried down the hallway, disappearing behind a bedroom door. I watched as Lance double-checked his rifle, face grim. I drew my pistol, heart pounding. We warn them first. If they try to come in, we do what we have to. He agreed with a curt nod. Through the window, I saw Colin and his associate stop about 20 yards from the porch. Colin shouted, voice carrying on the dusk air. Harding, I know you're in there. My teeth clenched. Stay behind the wall, I hissed to Lance. Then I raised my voice. Leave now, Westbrook. The police are looking for you. He laughed, cold and hollow. I bet they are. But you and your precious family are alone out here, right? Let me guess. You're holed up, thinking you can wait this out. I didn't answer. Another gunshot rang out, striking the porch railing with a loud crack. Splinters flew. Come out and face me, Harding, he roared. No more hiding behind cops and cameras. Let's settle this. Lance muttered. He wants a showdown. I signaled for him to stay low. Then I yelled back, "We're armed, and you won't walk away if you come closer. Turn around and leave, or you'll die on this farm." Colin's laugh held a manic edge. "You took everything from me, my empire, my woman, my money. Now I'm taking your life, or maybe your daughter's. Your call." Rage surged through me. "You so much as mention my daughter again." A volley of shots shattered the porch windows. Lance and I ducked, returning fire instinctively. Bullets tore into the wooden beams outside. Our ears rang in the enclosed space, the smell of gunpowder choking us. We heard a scream from the bedroom corridor, likely Mackenzie or Autumn, reacting to the gunshots. But we had no time to check. Colin and his thug peppered the front facade with bullets, smashing glass and sending shards across the floor. Lance snarled, shifting position to the side window. He aimed carefully. Through the shattered glass, I glimpsed Colin's silhouette. Lance squeezed the trigger, the rifle barking. A cry rang out. Someone got hit or forced to dive away. I scrambled to the other side, looking for a vantage. The second thug darted behind the SUV, returning fire. A bullet whined past my ear, lodging in the wall behind me. I fired back twice, uncertain if I made contact. Colin's voice roared, "Get that door open!" Footsteps pounded on the porch. He was charging us, reckless. Lance and I repositioned behind an overturned sofa, guns pointed at the front door. The handle jiggled, then a boot slammed against the wood. The frame splintered. Another kick. We aimed, hearts pounding. Before the third kick, I shouted, "Don't do it, Westbrook! You'll die right here!" My warning fell on deaf ears. The door gave way with a crash, the thug bursting through, a pistol leveled. Lance fired immediately, the rifle crack deafening indoors. The thug jerked backward, collapsing. Blood spattered on the threshold. Colin rushed in behind him, ignoring his fallen associate, pistol raised. I fired a shot, grazing his shoulder. He howled, stumbling, but his rage pushed him forward. He fired back wildly. Bullets ricocheted off the walls. I felt a sharp sting in my arm as one grazed me. I gritted my teeth, forcing my aim steady. Lance pivoted to flank Colin, but Colin flung a small stool in his direction, knocking Lance off balance. Another bullet from Colin's gun whizzed dangerously close to Lance's head. My heart lurched. This was chaos. I fired again, hitting Colin's leg. He roared in pain, dropping to a knee but still firing. My side lamp exploded in a shower of sparks. Lance recovered, raised his rifle. Colin swung his pistol to aim at me, fury twisting his features. Time slowed. I saw him pull the trigger. My gut screamed I was a fraction too slow, but Lance fired first, a single shot that found its mark in Colin's chest. The momentum knocked Colin backward. His gun fell from his grip, clattering on the floor. Silence crashed in, broken only by my ragged breathing and the acrid smell of gunpowder. Colin lay on the splintered floor, a spreading pool of blood. He coughed, eyes flickering with hatred and panic. I crept closer. Pistol trained on him. Lance covered me. Colin sputtered, blood on his lips, gasping. "You damned, you ruined me!" I knelt, teeth clenched, ignoring the pain in my arm. "You did that yourself," I said, voice shaking. His gaze flickered with fear, then emptiness. He tried to speak, but only a wet rattle emerged. After a final rasping breath, his eyes glazed over. Colin Westbrook was gone. Lance lowered his rifle, exhaling a tremulous sigh. "Holy, we're alive." I felt a rush of conflicting emotions, relief, horror, sorrow for the path that brought us here. In the background, I heard Mackenzie sobbing, and Autumn's frantic voice. "Is it over?" I turned, seeing them peeking from the hallway. "Stay back," I called softly. "He's dead." The reality sank in like lead. Colin had forced a confrontation, and we'd responded with lethal force. Mackenzie burst into tears. Autumn wrapped an arm around her, tearful in relief. Lance pressed a hand to my shoulder. "You okay?" I glanced at my arm. a ragged graze bleeding. Just a scratch. Adrenaline still pumped through me. We checked the thug who lay by the door, discovering he was also dead from Lance's rifle shot. 2 lives lost in a final, desperate attempt by Colin to preserve his twisted sense of revenge. My mind reeled, heart pounding in my chest. I dialed 911, breath unsteady, reporting the incident. I gave them the farmhouse address. The operator recognized we were the same people threatened last night. She assured me help was on the way. I hung up, sinking onto a half-broken chair, gun still in hand, body shaking from the come-down. Mackenzie rushed over, tears streaming. She flung her arms around me, ignoring the gore and debris. "Dad, oh God," she sobbed. "I heard shots. I thought you'd—" I held her fiercely, kissing the top of her head. "I'm all right, sweetheart. It's over. He can't hurt you anymore." Autumn hovered, tears in her eyes. Lance stood guard by the door, rifle lowered, scanning for any other threats. But it was done. The final confrontation had ended. An hour later, flashing lights lit up the old farmhouse yard again. Police, ambulances, coroners, investigations. They took our statements, more thorough this time because we'd killed 2 men. But the evidence supported self-defense, bullet holes outside, the forced entry, everything consistent with their lethal intent. We had the phone threats recorded. Local law enforcement treated us with grave respect, nodding in understanding at the necessity of our actions. As dawn approached again, we found ourselves slumped in Lance's sister's living room, exhausted, battered, yet strangely numb. The coroner's van took away the bodies. Colin Westbrook was no longer a threat, nor was his hired henchman. I updated Mac, who was stunned but not surprised. "You did what you had to," he said quietly. "Nobody wanted it to end in blood, but he gave you no choice." Mackenzie was rattled, but ironically she seemed to gather strength from the finality of it all. Autumn, too, though shaken, wore a look of grim relief. We'd survived the worst storm, battered but intact. When midday finally arrived, a detective gave us clearance to leave or stay as we pleased. The scene processed. Lance's sister was informed of the situation, graciously letting us remain until we felt ready to move on. I thanked her by phone, though I doubted this place would ever feel the same. We sat around the battered kitchen table. Mackenzie sipped water. Autumn forced down some bread. I stared at the new bandage on my arm, courtesy of paramedics. Lance nursed a bruise on his shoulder from a near-miss bullet. The hush was heavy with the weight of finality. "He's gone," I murmured at last, voice thick. "Colin's gone." Autumn let out a shaky breath. He made his choice. "I wish it hadn't come to that." I nodded, looking at Mackenzie. "Kiddo, how are you holding up?" She swallowed hard. "I'm not okay, but I'm glad it's over. I was so scared." I squeezed her hand. "Me too." A silence fell. Eventually, Lance said, "We should probably head home soon. Need to check the damage, see about repairs, or you can rest here a bit." I closed my eyes, the image of Colin's final, hateful gaze seared into my mind. "We'll give it a day, maybe. Let the cops wrap up their interviews, then we'll go home and rebuild." Mackenzie spoke softly. "Dad, do you think Mom will still go to prison now that Colin's, I exhaled. "Probably. She committed crimes. She'll still face charges, but maybe not as severe. That's up to the court. She might actually get a lighter sentence since she helped the DA. Tears rimmed Mackenzie's eyes. "At least she's alive." Autumn watched quietly, then gently touched my arm. "You saved us, both of you." She nodded to Lance. "Thank you." I sighed, a mix of pride and sorrow. We did what had to be done. A few days later, after final police interviews and a thorough investigation, The shooting was officially deemed self-defense. We returned to our house, battered from bullet holes but still standing. We spent days cleaning up shards of glass, patching walls, redoing the locks. The memory of that night would forever haunt us. But each hammer swing or fresh coat of paint felt like reclaiming our space from violence. News outlets soon covered the saga in sensational headlines. Local developer killed in shootout while evading fraud charges. They recounted how he orchestrated $1 million charity scam, threatened a family, ended up shot dead by the homeowner defending his child. Some portrayed it as a dramatic final act of a desperate criminal. Alexis, arrested and eventually freed on bail, called Mackenzie once from her lawyer's office, sounding shaken. She apologized again, said she'd fight to reduce her sentence by continuing to cooperate against Westbrook Sr. He, too, faced possible charges of conspiracy and obstruction. The empire they built was in tatters. Mackenzie didn't talk much about the conversation, but I saw a somber acceptance in her eyes. Her mother would face justice, and maybe one day they could find a measure of forgiveness. For now, we just lived day by day, grateful to be alive. Autumn, after giving a final statement to the DA, decided to move to a nearby city, partly for a fresh start. She promised to keep in touch. On her last night staying with us, we all shared a quiet dinner, reflecting on how a tragedy had brought us together in an odd alliance. She left the next morning with tears and hugs, determined to rebuild her career in event planning, this time ethically. Lance resumed his life, checking on me often, ensuring I was coping. The nightmares of gunfire sometimes jolted me awake, but I found solace in Mackenzie's presence. She was my anchor, my reason to keep forging ahead. Despite it all, father and daughter had emerged closer, bound by surviving a trial by fire. In the end, the betrayal and revenge story that began with Alexis's affair had burned hotter and darker than anyone could have predicted. Lives were lost, reputations destroyed, prison sentences awaiting. But from the ashes, a small, steadfast truth remained. You don't mess with a man's child and expect him to roll over. You don't threaten a Marine's family and walk away unscathed. I'd never asked for revenge, not in the beginning. I just wanted the truth and protection for my daughter. Yet the path twisted into a labyrinth of deceit and violence, culminating in a final confrontation on a lonely farmhouse porch. In that moment, justice and survival entwined under the muzzle flash of a gun. In the aftermath, I found a fragile peace. Mackenzie and I embraced a new normal, one where we no longer lived in fear of headlights on the street or footsteps at the door. The memory of bloodshed lingered, sure, but so did the memory of victory, of standing up to tyranny and winning. Sometimes at night, I'd stand in my garage workshop, listening to the hum of the overhead light. I'd think of that day Alexis first walked in, eyes bright with dreams, before everything crumbled. I'd think of Colin's final twisted grin, and I'd think of how easily a quiet life can explode into chaos when people choose betrayal over loyalty, greed over love. Yet here we were, father and daughter, forging forward. If betrayal demanded retribution, we delivered. And if the cost was high, at least we walked away with our family's dignity and each other still intact. Hey, listeners of Temptress Cheating Tales,